A new year and new opportunities. Welcome to the Ministry of Finance's Wealth Summit, the first one for 2022. If you are just joining us, meaning that you didn't join in for the two in 2021, this is the third in the series, and we're discussing the opportunities that will present themselves in 2022. I'm Anna Smith, your host for today. Now, Wealth Summit started in 2021. We discussed financial inclusion. And then in October 2021, we discussed digital financial inclusion. And from those, we learned a lot about the opportunities that we present. Now in 2022, 2 years into the pandemic, we might be slowly coming out of it. Of course, there are new opportunities that are going to present themselves, and Wealth Summit is here to tell you about those. So we have an interesting lineup of speakers this morning that you'll learn a lot more from. But let me tell you what you're in for Wealth Summit, February 2022. So the objectives are to create a space for Jamaicans to become more financially literate. And if you are financially literate, that means that your wealth would naturally increase. So Wealth Summit is a product of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. It's designed to empower Jamaicans to increase your financial knowledge. And of course, it creates a space for the ministry to interact with Jamaicans. And of course, again, we want you to be empowered so that you will be able to make better financial decisions. I can't wait to introduce our lineup of speakers for today. Of all of them, you are well aware of. Some of them you'll be learning about for the first time. But for whatever it is, Wealth Summit will be a treat for this month. Now, we're talking about a new year and the new opportunities. And you know what New Year come with? New Year come with, resolutions. You do that resolution thing there. Did you make any for 2022? What are they? Or what were they? We're going to discuss the typical New Year's resolutions that we as Jamaicans make. And some of the popular ones are to make more money. That's not very direct, but that's one of the resolutions. To acquire real estate. To be healthier, because health are wealth and so, right? And to save more, invest more, and to start a business. Now, if those were among your New Year's resolutions, this program is for you. We're gonna examine these. We're gonna help you to flesh it out. We're gonna give you the information that you can build on so that your New Year's resolutions can be realized. And just dash them by the end of February, you just can't bother. We're going to empower you so that through to December 2022, you would have made significant progress in the realization and the alignment to your original resolutions. So it's the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. We're inside the AC Marriott Hotel, streaming live on the Ministry of Finance's Facebook page, YouTube channel, and we are also streaming via the Jamaica Information Services Facebook page and YouTube channel. Now, if you like the content, if you like the people, not afraid enough, please tweet us at MOF Jamaica, or you can follow the ministry on Instagram at Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, MOFPS Jamaica. Now, we are pleased to welcome the Director for Corporate Communications at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Shelley Ann Weeks, who will tell you some more about Wealth Summit. But while she comes to the lectern, I want you to know, that this is an interactive program, right? We'll be asking you questions through a link in Zoom. You'll see a Mentimeter link that asks your question and you respond, and we will read those responses on air. And we also have questions that you can put in the chat. So put your questions. I'll post them to our guests, and they will respond. The team at the ministry, of course, will be able to provide all the answers that you desire. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please help me welcome Director of Corporate Communications at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Shelley and Weeks.
Good morning, one and all, and a Happy New Year to everybody. Of course, I have to say a special good morning to our esteemed, very fabulous host, Miss Anna Smith. And I have to say thank you and good morning to all our panelists. I'm certainly excited to hear what you have to share with us today. And to everybody tuning in from the World Wide Web, whether you're linking us from the Facebook or YouTube platforms, and certainly to all the civil servants joining us live on Zoom, good morning to you all and happy 2022. Now, of course, this is the second year into this new world that we have been embarking on since the COVID pandemic has struck us, and our lives have certainly changed. Since the start of Wealth Summit, we have certainly been trying to make sure that we have the different tools that we need to get our money up, because, you know, we can't do much without money these days. So I love this time of the year. It's my favorite time of the year because it makes me feel like I get a chance to reset, reevaluate, kind of see where I'm at, kind of make some plans. And so our theme definitely is fitting because we're talking about new opportunities in a new year. Now, do you set resolutions? I certainly do. That link that Anna just spoke about, it's supposed to be in your chats right now. Click that link and tell us how you feel about resolutions. Now, for me, a resolution is simply a goal, and I try to set them throughout the year, but at the beginning of the year, I set bigger goals. So join me on my exploration as we look at resolutions. Now, I know for some of us, resolutions may seem unattainable, but it is really something that helps us to keep us guided as we continue through our lives. Now, goals are something that, you know, it's important whenever we try to improve upon ourselves, or maybe we just have something we want to achieve. Now, when people look at resolutions, they say, no, sir, we don't make no resolution, because by the time we reach February, we can't bother. Or I join the gym and I go for 2 weeks, and it's a waste of my money and my time. So let us take a look at it as a goal instead of a resolution. For this particular theme, we looked at the top 5 money resolutions that people make. According to Google, they are to make more money, to acquire real estate, to save more / invest more, to start a business, and believe it or not, to be healthier. Now somebody will say, healthier? That's not a money resolution. You better believe that it is, because our health is our most important asset. And to that, I'm very happy to say that I'm excited to hear what Dr. Dawes have to share with us when we look at our health as an investment. Because the truth is, I don't care how good your bank account looks. I don't care how much money you have in cryptocurrencies. I'm sure Kalila is going to help to explain that to me and the rest of us. But if your health is not where it needs to be, the money is almost useless. So today our presenters are all experts who will help us to achieve some of these goals if you have already made them. And maybe you haven't, but you might be inspired today. Now, Wealth Summit is created to help us be better managers of our monies. And it's a great way to help us to attain wealth or more wealth. And so we can start where we are right now. So this is a learning exercise. So you know the drill. Get all that you need to learn today. Grab your notebook, link a friend, tag a friend to the post that you're in on social media right now, and definitely make use of all the information that will be shared with you today. Now, this entire event takes a lot to put together, and I really just have to say a big thank you to everybody who has participated. First, I want to say thanks to all our panelists, all our presenters. Thank you for giving us your time and your expertise this morning, and for helping us to continue on this journey towards wealth. I want to say thank you to the technical team. You see how everything pretty and the lights them nice, and it's giving me an exceptional glow this morning. All the team behind the scenes, production, thank you guys so much. Your magic is amazing, and we appreciate everything you do. I really want to say a special big up to our host, Miss Anna Smith. She joined this journey with us from the very first Well Summit, and she's still here with us today. And Anna, thank you. You are looking especially splendiferous today. I want to say a special big up to my team at the Communications and Public Relations branch at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. Yes, I'm going to name them. Kim, Shaquille, Shade, Bradley, and Camille. Thank you for your trust and your support. This does not happen without you. Thank you to all of you who's making some time for us today to tune in from wherever you're streaming, at home and abroad, to make use of this very important session, and I hope it becomes useful to you. So welcome to Well Summit. Welcome to a new year. I hope you take advantage of the new opportunities, and I will see you out there getting it, doing it, and making use of all the knowledge here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shelley Ann Weeks, Director, Corporate Communications and Public Relations at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. I want to with Shelley though, when she welcome you, you feel welcome. So please get your little tea. If you drink tea already, please get a little juice, get your notebook, get your pencil, get your pen. And if you're a little high-tech, get your iPad, get your tablet, you know what I mean? Because it's learning time. We're going to write, we're going to learn about the new opportunities that are going to present themselves in 2022. Did I say that I'm excited to introduce our presenters today? I did, didn't I? Yeah, man. All right, so among the first is a lady that you might know. I am pleased to welcome State Minister in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Marcia Smith. Marcia Smith joined the team in 2016 as State Minister. You might know her for her constituency in St. Anne. She will be speaking to us about what the ministry's plans and other information that she thinks would be relevant for our wealthy clients. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome State Minister Marcia Smith.
Good morning, Anna. It's good to say welcome, Jonathan Smith.
Of course, you did right.
I am happy to join today's World Summit. It's the first for 2022. And that being said, Happy New Year to everyone. I want to especially thank the ministry's technical team, led by Michelle Ann Weeks, the presenters who are here today, and most of all, I'd like to thank all the persons who have logged in and will eventually view this summit. Everything has a season. We are in the northern hemisphere, and we are currently in winter. Winter is a time when we live off the store of the land. And it's also a time when we prepare ourselves to plant in spring. Spring is going to start on the 1st of March. And we are now making our preparations for planting. Today, we are going to hear from speakers who are going to, in different ways, show how we can plan for the planting season. And I am excited to hear what they will present. But I am going to throw out a twofold challenge. The first challenge is to regularize, formalize, and rectify your legal status. And the second challenge is for us to pay attention to the budget and the sectoral debates. The first part of the challenge, at its simplest, can entail things like getting your birth certificate. There are thousands of Jamaicans who cannot be a part of the formal economy because they lack a birth certificate. There is a late registration process. I encourage persons to take advantage of it. Secondly, my next recommendation of a simple thing you can do is to correct any errors or omission on your children's birth certificates. This includes things like correcting the names, the spellings, and most importantly, establishing paternity by adding fathers to birth certificates. You'll be surprised how often persons have to utilize these documents to generate other documents, such as your tax registration number and your NIS number. The other thing I'd recommend that we do is to get enumerated, not because I want your vote, but because it offers an opportunity for persons to get a secure government ID. In order to access services at several financial institutions, one of the requirements that is often stated is a government-issued ID. So that's a simple way in which we can start to access the formal economy. The next thing I'd recommend is that you separate your personal and commercial finances. This may include a strategy of creating a company through which to operate your commercial activities, and even as simple as paying yourself a salary so that you can know what it is that you're actually making. Another part of the formalization process is to regularize your employment status. The public service of the ministry is the arm of government that deals primarily with employment of public sector workers. And we know how important it is for that relationship to be regularized to ensure certainty. So if you are an employer, formalize your employment contracts. Submit your statutory returns for your employees. If you are an employee, insist upon your status being regularized. Persons cannot access an NIS pension or an NAH, a National Housing Trust benefit if they have never contributed. Regularize your trade license and your practicing certifications. A lot of these certifications come for renewal in the first 2 months of the year. If you are a farmer, register with RADA. Your ability to access government programs is reduced or eliminated if you are not formally registered within your sector. The list that I've given you is not exhaustive, but it represents some of the first steps that you can take along the process of formalization. I know that the presenters to follow me will also touch in some way on some of these very ideas, so listen keenly. So the next part of my challenge is to pay attention to the budget and the sectorial debates. Now, why do I say that? A lot of times persons see these debates as being very boring and only for those who are involved in high finance. They are not. The budget process is public because it entails the public's interest. The budget debate will give you an insight into the overall direction that the economy is likely to go. And the sectoral debates will bring into sharp focus the priority areas of each sector. Knowledge is power, and the more educated you are about finances, is the better the financial decisions you will take. In the 60th year of our country, we are going to have several opportunities, individually and collectively, to reflect on our past, contemplate our present, and plan for the future. So this year, we are going to continue in the theme of being resilient since COVID-19 has impacted our lives. After all, we are the people who turn our hand and make fashion, and we are also the people that know that one cocoa, full basket. Don't log out of this session. Stay tuned to the summit. Exciting things are in store. Thank you.
Thank you so much, State Minister, the Honorable Marcia Smith, coming to you with some practical guidelines, right? If I were to recap, I'd recap as rectify, regularize, and formalize, right? So if you were listening attentively, the State Minister encouraged us to do about 4 things that I think were the highlights. 1, pay attention to the budget debate, because that gives us an idea of the likely direction of the economy for the coming year. So that is one key. That is where you can get some new opportunities or insights into new opportunities. Number 2, pay attention to the sectoral debates, because they bring into sharp focus the key areas of attention from each ministry. And then another practical piece of advice: regularize your legal documents. Correct spelling errors if there are any. Add fathers to the birth certificates if they were not added at birth. Those are practical and useful tools that we can begin to regularize our financial and legal documents. And she also said, get enumerated. Not really because she wants your vote still, but because it gives the country an idea of the citizenry and the number of persons that are eligible to vote. These are all practical and useful tips that we can employ just to get ourselves regularized. So we thank State Minister Marcia Smith for her very useful presentation and her encouragement and practical recommendations. And if you know her very well, you know that she's a past student of the Westwood High School. So big up all the Westwood ladies who are watching, and anybody from Westwood High School, if you're watching, you have a reason to be proud this morning. Now, all right, so we're gonna go to our next presenter. But before we do that, do you remember me tell you about the Mentimeter? That link in your chat that you click on and you respond to the question that is there. All right, is there a question? Are there any responses for me? Shaquille. All right, yes. So before we hear from our next presenter, this is what you had to say. So did you make any New Year's resolutions? And yes, I am seeing blue for yes and pink for no. Forgive me, I can't see far. I saw you go. And who that in a little number over there, so. Okay. No. All right. So yes, yes and no are almost equal. And some persons did not think about it. I wonder why. Can't bother? All right. I think our next presenter, though, will help you, if it's not even a New Year's resolution, but just a plan to develop some goals and to see where opportunities lie in finance. So we know her, perhaps, from Nationwide, but she is now literally nationwide as Jamaica's leading financial journalist, one of the more influential financial journalists, Mrs. Kalila Reynolds. After serving 20 years in television and radio in Jamaica and her native country, Belize, Kalila branched out on her own in 2020, launching Kalila Reynolds Media, KRM. KRM's mission is to help Caribbean people to create and maintain personal wealth and prosperous economies by making Jamaica businesses and finance easy to understand. She does that for real. Its flagship programs are Jamaica's #1 rated show, Taking Stock, and the Financial Education Program. Money Mondays JA, Kalila is a published author of 2 books and has a Master of Arts degree in Communications from the University of the West Indies and a Bachelor of Arts in Journalism from the University of New York City, both with distinction. She's also a mom of 3 beautiful children and a wife to the world's best husband, just to say. Can't stop her. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the beautiful, the gorgeous, the wise, the learned, Kalila Reynolds.
Ooh. Thank you very much, Anna. Wow, with an introduction like that, I can just drop the mic and walk away, right?
No, girl, no. We want to hear what you have to say.
Yes, so as Anna said, my name is Kalila Reynolds. I'm a small business owner and a journalist, entrepreneur, among many other things. And about 5 years ago, I discovered the key to adulting. What does this mean? So many of us, we grow up and we are raised with the traditional beliefs of you go to school, you work hard, you get a good job, hopefully you get a promotion, you buy a house, and this is the extent of our financial education. And this is passed down generation to generation. And I did that. As Anna mentioned, you know, I went to university, got 2 degrees, did well, smart, had a great job, loved what I did and still do, but I was broke. So I was a professional success, but a financial failure. And I know a lot of people can relate to that. You're in debt. You have the credit card debt, you owe courts, you owe this one, you owe that one. You're struggling to pay the school fees. You want to send your children to the best prep schools or whatever schools available, and you just can't make the ends meet. And that was my situation up until about 5 years ago. And I said to myself, Kalila, you're too smart for broke. You cannot be this smart and be struggling financially. And so I started looking at, well, what do the wealthy people that I know do? How did they get rich? How did they accumulate wealth? And I started paying attention to the very things that I was reporting on as a business journalist and implementing them in my own life. So we're gonna come to those strategies in just a few moments. But first, I want to set out the landscape for you, because even 5 years ago is very different than today, as you would know. 5 years ago, where were we? That was around 2017. Still somewhat recovering from the last recession, in the throes of an IMF program, and a lot was going on. And then we started seeing a gradual improvement in the economy, and then bam, 2020, COVID hit. And now we are in a position where 2021 and 2022 is emerging just as 2021 did, as a year of very high inflation. Now, what is inflation? It's simply the change in the cost of goods and services over a specific period of time. And let's come to our very first slide. So this is data produced by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, and they measure inflation. And I want you to pay special attention to that number circled in red on the bottom. Now, this was produced in December 2021. The January figures aren't out yet. That will be out probably either this week or next week. It will be out pretty soon. But look at what the calendar year-to-date inflation was. So January to December 2021, inflation was over 9%. And what does that mean? It means that the average cost of goods and services in Jamaica rose by 9% over the last calendar year. And 2022 is shaping up to be not that much better. So let's look at the second slide. If I can finish, here we go. So inflation affects pretty much everything. So look at this headline recently: chicken prices soar again. You all know that familiar looking menu. KFC prices gone up again, and they keep going up. Like, I think KFC raised their prices like 5 times last year. They just raised prices again. I'm not even sure if that's the most recent menu, but their prices, you're looking at $1,000 and up for, I guess, standard KFC meal now. And everybody loves KFC, so that's a part of the average Jamaican diet. And then last week we had this, KFC Jamaica hit by chicken shortage. So you know what that means? Prices going up yet again. And then we have cement prices going up. This article came out in January. Cement prices going up means house prices are going up. So construction prices in general are going up. And so that makes your dream of owning your own home even less attainable, unfortunately. And then we have oil prices hitting $90 a barrel for the first time since 2014. Now, you really need to understand the significance of this because oil prices rising affect basically everything in our lives. Yes, there's gas and transportation prices, but it also goes into farming because you need tractors to run your farms. It also goes into the cost of your food products. It goes into travel costs if you plan to fly out. If you need to import things, it trickles down to every single facet of life. And right now, we're at $90 a barrel, the highest in almost 10 years. And then we're looking, Forbes is saying $100 US a barrel. And if you think about it, the last time oil prices were this high, Jamaica was a part of the Petro-Caribe agreement with Venezuela. And so we were able to defer a large chunk of our oil payments. We no longer have that agreement. But I wouldn't say that we're specifically in trouble now because of it, because our economy is a lot stronger than it was back then. We no longer need the IMF. We have strong foreign reserves. But still, this is something that we need to keep our eye on because it affects inflation and it affects the cost of living in so many different facets of life that you may not even realize. Then we have the Jamaican dollar. So the Jamaican dollar has lost 16% of its value since COVID hit. On March 10, 2020, the JMD was $135.46 to $1 US. And as of yesterday, the Jamaican dollar is now $157.70 to $1 US. So we're approaching 158, 159, 160. And people are naturally getting concerned that $200 may be, in the coming months. We remember a time not so long ago, a few months ago, when 150, I gave a presentation for the Ministry of Finance when I said 150, oh my God, and that was just about 3 years ago. $100 a few years ago seemed far away. And now the Jamaican dollar is depreciating even further, which means less spending power. And then we come to what some of you would feel because 31 unions accepted the government's 4% wage increase. What did I say inflation was? 9%. How much did the Jamaican dollar depreciate? 16%. How much wage increase are you getting? 4%. And we understand that there are fiscal constraints and that there are other things that are part of the package that help to make up for this difference in what the wage increase is versus what inflation is, what depreciation is, and so on. But there are other things that you can do to offset this balance, and we're going to talk about them as well. So, like I said before as well, the situation is improving, even under COVID time. So one of the factors that we see is that unemployment has decreased, meaning employment has increased, more people are working, we're now back down to about 7%. But look at this as well, before I come to the strategies for how you can offset that balance. And I hope you can make out the numbers on this chart. I downloaded this from the Bank of Jamaica's website just yesterday. So most of us, like I said in the beginning, we are taught that you go to school, you get a good job, you work hard, you buy a house, and you save your money. You work hard, you save up your money in a financial institution. Well, I want you to look at this chart and look at the column highlighted in yellow. These are the average interest rates on savings accounts in Jamaica. 0.4%. And this is up to November 2021, 0.4%. And if you were able to scroll up the chart, because the data on this spreadsheet actually goes back to 1996, you would see that there was a time when interest rates were a lot higher and it made sense to save your money in a financial institution because you were earning something like 12, 13, 14, even 15% on your savings accounts. And over the years, that has declined dramatically. And we're now at just 0.4% interest rate on savings. And we all have heard the conversation about banking fees. You probably end up paying more than that in fees because now they charge you to take out your money, to look at your money, to write a check, to anything, just to go in and check your balance at the ATM, they are now charging you a fee for. So you end up paying more in fees than you receive in interest. And then when you look in the column at the column in blue, you see, okay, 3%. You can get about 3% interest rate if you use a fixed deposit for about 12 months and over. So that's if you put your money in the bank and you agree to let them hold it for 12 months or more, and you don't touch it at all for 12 months. So you don't have access to that cash during that period of time. And then you can get about 3% interest. But how much is inflation? 9%. How much was depreciation? 16%. So you are losing money if you keep your money in the bank, and that's the only store that you have for your money. You actually need to start investing, and that's more important now than ever. You absolutely have to start investing. And so let's come to some of the keys to wealth creation. Before I come to that, let me look at this slide right here. So interest rates are going up. The BOJ has increased its policy interest rate to 2.5%, and that's a signal to the banks as to what type of interest they will charge. Or, sorry, not charge. Well, that too, because interest also applies to loans. But that signals how much interest rate they're going to earn and also how much interest they are going to pay to you. So they are going up, but still, 2.5%, the banks are not going to be much higher than that. So look, 3%, maybe 4%. It still doesn't meet up with inflation. So, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to sink, like this unfortunate young lady here, or are you going to swim? You have got to learn how to swim in this new economic environment. Savings alone will not do it, and I've already outlined why that is the case. So let's look at the keys to wealth creation. Number one is real estate. And because of inflation, real estate prices have been rising dramatically over the past 10 years, and I expect that they will continue to do so in the coming years. Now look at this house in the photo. In 2016, that house was valued 25 million Jamaican dollars. And just using the the inflation rates for each of these years, we see that in 2021, that house is now valued $32 million. And with inflation even higher now, how much will it be valued in 2022? Now this goes both ways because one, it means that that house that you dream of owning now costs a lot more than perhaps when you started saving for it. And so it's that much more out of reach, and it may feel like one step forward, two steps backward. But on the other hand, if you are able to access the capital, to access the money to purchase that house, you see the level of appreciation of that asset over time. And this is one way that you can start building wealth. But we all know that there is a hurdle to this goal, to investing in real estate, and it is that you need access to a large amount of cash up front, even if that's through a loan. Now, the second key to wealth creation is entrepreneurship, and you're going to hear more about that later on today from some other panelists. And when we look at 2021, there was record business registration in 2021. Many people, over 17,000 new businesses registered in Jamaica, and nearly 5,000 new companies registered last year, and partly due to the pandemic. And this is coming off 2020, when there was also another record. So 2020 was a record-setting year for business registrations, and then 2021 broke 2020's record, so taking it to an even higher level. Now, the thing with entrepreneurship is that it's not for everybody. So real estate investing will take up a lot of your money. Entrepreneurship, as an entrepreneur myself, I can tell you, it will take up a lot of your time. And it is not for everybody. Not everybody has the skills, not everybody has the desire to run a business. So the most accessible form of wealth creation is actually stock market investing. So when I say that I was looking at what the wealthy people I know were doing, a lot of them were doing this, investing in the stock market. Now, last year on the Jamaica Stock Exchange was not the best year for the overall market. The main market only grew by 2%. And financial stocks in particular were hard hit. They have yet to recover from COVID. However, the junior market, and unfortunately my slide is a little bit jumbled, but if you can make out there, the junior market grew by 29%. And the junior market simply refers to companies that are listed on the stock exchange that have a smaller size than your big NCB and your Sagicor. So you have the smaller companies that list on the junior market, and these are companies that are really at their growth stage and are growing rapidly. And so the return on those investments last year, on average, and average means that you have some higher, you have some lower, the average return last year from investing on the junior market was 29%. And if you're looking at the US markets, the average return last year on the S&P 500 was 30%. So these are exciting times for investors, and partly because of the situation that we have found ourselves in with the pandemic. So typically, when you are in a recession and stock prices are down and everything is down and you're at the bottom, where is the only place to go? Up. And so you want to get involved, and I think this is a better time than almost any, even in history, to get started. Because if you start now, when everything is down, you will reap the benefits when things start going back up and up and up and up, and you will start seeing those returns. I also have bonds on that list, and bonds are simply a way of, it's basically when you lend your money to a company or a government. So governments issue bonds, corporations issue bonds, and it's a way for them to raise capital from the general public. They tend to be less risky than stocks, generally speaking, but they also tend to be lower interest, because you know the rule: low risk, low reward, higher risk, high reward. And I pointed out bonds specifically because of the issue with interest rates. I said interest rates are going up. You saw where the Bank of Jamaica is making those policy decisions. The US Federal Reserve is also doing the same thing and raising interest rates. So bond rates, meaning the interest rate that you get from investing in a bond, are going to be going up. Now, there's another one that has become popular over the past 5 years or so: cryptocurrency. Now, the thing about cryptocurrency, and I don't have it on my 3 keys to wealth creation just yet, because it is relatively new. Now, the other 3 factors that we spoke about have existed for many, many decades. Bitcoin was only invented in 2009. Ethereum, which is another popular one, was invented in 2015. So we don't have the decades of data to really assess whether this can be something for the future. And I am convinced that cryptocurrency is something for the future, but I also issue a caution that it is very volatile and it's not for the faint of heart. And if you look at the chart that's on the screen right now, you see the lines going way up and way down and way up and way down. That was the performance of Bitcoin last year. And you see that big number, $6.8 million? That's how much for one Bitcoin. 6.8 million Jamaican dollars for one Bitcoin as of yesterday. But we have seen with Bitcoin in the past year that that value can be cut in half almost overnight, and then all of a sudden double again. So it is not for the faint of heart. If you are a risk taker, it is something that you could consider adding to your portfolio, but I just issue a word of caution on it. And I throw it in there because it's becoming increasingly popular, and I do believe that it is part of the future. So trends for 2022, what are we looking out for? What do we need to be on the cutting edge of? So number 1, the JSE is about to start allowing direct trading on the US and Canadian markets from Jamaica. Now, you can already purchase stocks in the US and Canadian markets and anywhere in the world, but there are some restrictions, there are some prohibitions. So there are ways to do it. You can try to get around the system and beat the system, and you can open an account in one of these countries in order to do those trades. Sometimes you need to be a citizen in some cases, you need to provide certain documentation. There are also companies here that facilitate those types of transactions, but they're a little bit more prohibitive because you need to have a larger sum of money as opposed to investing on the regular stock exchange where you can get started with even 1,000 Jamaican dollars. You may need a larger sum of money to start investing on foreign exchanges through a local broker. So for the JSE to start to allow direct trading on the US and Canadian markets is really going to be a game changer in terms of access for regular people to those markets. So that's one of the trends that we need to be looking at, or I should say developments, because that's not necessarily a trend. Now, another trend we're looking at for 2022 is stock splits. Google is doing one in July, and Massey is doing one in March. And what is a stock split? Well, it's simply taking your shares and dividing them up. So Google right now, their stock costs about $3,000 US. So if you have one share in Google, that share is worth $3,000 US. When they split that share, they're doing a 20-to-1 stock split. They're going to split that share into 20. And now each share will be worth $150 US. So 20 times 150, it's still worth the same $3,000. So existing shareholders, existing investors have nothing to lose. There's no difference in the amount that they own, the total amount. But for new shareholders and potential shareholders, it makes a world of a difference because $150 is much more affordable than $3,000 US. So a lot of people are going to be looking to try to get into companies like Google because their stock price has become more affordable. And here in Jamaica, Massey has now listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. They're a Trinidadian company. Their stock price is now over 2,000 Jamaican dollars, which is the most expensive stock on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. When that stock split occurs on March 11, the stock price for Massey is going to go down to 100 Jamaican dollars. So there are opportunities in looking at things like this, developments like this. What other trends should we be looking out for? Well, the trend of IPOs continues. Companies listing on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So far this year, we've already had Spurtree Spices, and we're also expecting a few others, including Edufocal, Jamaica Fiberglass Company, and WePay. Now, if we look at Spurtree Spices, which was the first listing of the year, let's look at their performance so far. So Spurtree Spices, listed on the Junior Stock Exchange. Remember I told you the smaller companies are really making bank. Their stock price is already up 200%. The IPO price was $1, and it's now at $3.02 as of yesterday. And this company just listed in January. So just in a few weeks, you could have already tripled your money by investing in this company. So how do you get started? Well, I'm going to make a shameless pitch here. You can take my Investing for Beginners Masterclass at KalilaReynolds.com/masterclass, where I teach you the basics on how to get started. And this isn't a money-making venture for me per se. It's a passion project because so many people ask me directly, how do I get started? What do I do? What are the basic things that I need to learn? What is an IPO? What is a stock split? What are all these things? And that's covered in the masterclass. And once you have taken that and you've started your journey, I have a show for you as well. It's called Taking Stock with Kalila Reynolds on YouTube. It's on my YouTube channel. It's absolutely free for you to watch, where we discuss the latest trends in business and finance. And you have an opportunity to see what the analysts think about certain developments in the markets and what perhaps you should be considering to add to your portfolio. And then, of course, you subscribe to my newsletter where you get all this information directly to your email inbox at KalilaReynolds.com/newsletter. And I want to leave you with this word. It is a lot more attainable than you think to get started. Many people believe mistakenly that you need hundreds of thousands of dollars. You have to already be rich in order to start investing. And that is absolutely not true. Investing is not only for the wealthy, investing is how you get wealthy. So start today with whatever you have. It could be as little as 1,000 Jamaican dollars. Be consistent about your investments, and build wealth, because right now we are going to swim through 2022 and beyond. We are not going to let the financial situation and the economic situation bring us down. Let's get this money.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I know I talk to, I just listen to Kalila, I just feel rich. I feel rich. Let me just sit down good in my chair, because I just feel, you know, real rich. Tanto, man, there. You know what I mean? Tanto, where you there? I know how you feel. Tanto, I know how you feel. Jeez, Kalila, thank you.
You're welcome.
On behalf of our viewers, thank you so much. I'm sure you learned a lot. Like in the 15 minutes that just passed, you got the keys to wealth, to becoming wealthy in Jamaica. All right, that's a social media question, right, Shaquille? What are the 3 keys to wealth? Answer that question and you'll be able to get a prize, a wealthy prize, from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. We're gonna sit down now, we're gonna have a chat with Kalila Reynolds just for her to answer your questions if you have them, and for her to share some more information, some more wealthy tips. All right, Kalila, thank you so much again for that presentation. Now, before I go to Kalila, there's a question that I need to ask in the Mentimeter, and then Kalila can address it. That is, describe your money goals for 2022. All right? That is, describe your money goals for 2022. And here are the answers. Kalila, this might interest you.
Okay.
All right, to travel the world soon. Ooh. How soon is soon? All right, first thing about goals, you see, them need to have a timeline.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Them need for smart. We learn that. Them need to be specific, measurable, attainable. Yeah, you can travel the world, but you need to invest first of your money. They need to be time bound. That means they need to have a deadline, all right? So for the person who said travel the world soon, we need to tighten that up. We need to make it more specific. Improve on my house and lower, okay. Soon come back to that one day. Invest, that looks like lower outflows. I wonder what that means. All right, invest, save more, financial freedom, that is a money goal. And another, budget, increase inflows, reduce expenses. By how much though? All right, so we have to get those goals more specific. By how much you want to reduce your expenses? What are you gonna do? To purchase a car, what kind of car? How much you have? What is your budget? Make more money. So if you were just listening to Kalila, you hear the tips. You hear them, nice, big and plain and simple. Reduce debt. By how much? What are you gonna take out? And to be philanthropic. So that's a money goal for some of our viewers for 2022. Kalila.
Those are some great goals.
There are some great goals.
The makings of some
the
great
makings,
goals,
right?
Like they need to have more specific.
Right, and sometimes need to be put on them. So do we have the answers to our social media questions? Not as yet. All right, so we won't speak about the three keys to creating wealth in Jamaica just yet. But what I found, that I have a little insight into these. The inflation rate in Jamaica now at 9%. I mean, for our viewers who know, the inflation target is 4 to 6%. So 3% outside of target is a significant development in Jamaica. And of course, we know why the pandemic has contributed to this. But Kalila, what I found interesting from your presentation was where you said that now is the best time, more than ever, perhaps in recent history, to start investing.
Absolutely.
You want to say some more about that for persons who don't get it, for persons for whom it might seem counterintuitive. Why is that so?
Absolutely. So it's a key principle. It's a basic principle of business. You want to, how do you make a profit at anything?
Right.
Buy low and sell high.
Yes.
So you want to sell at a profit, which means that you want to be looking for deals.
Yeah.
If you are in any type of business, if you are purchasing property, you want to get the best price, right?
Yeah.
And if you eventually want to sell that property at a profit, you're going to sell it for a higher price than you bought it for.
Yeah.
If you are buying and selling goods on the street corner or whatever. If you are in the restaurant business, you want to get your commodities at a low price and then be able to sell them at a premium, like what KFC does, right? You add value
but
to
KFC
it.
can't break it up.
You add value to it and you sell at a premium. But the entire objective is to sell for more than you purchased it for, and that's how you make a profit. Well, the same principle applies to the stock market. And what have we been seeing during the pandemic? We have seen stock prices plummet. We have seen, particularly in 2020, you saw the stock market fall significantly in Jamaica. Prices fell about 30% overall in 2020. In 2019, NCB stock price was well over $200. What is it now? It is about $130 to buy stock in NCB. Is NCB less of a company? No. NCB is still making money.
Yes, sir.
NCB is still going to continue making money. For all intents and purposes, we don't see NCB going out of business anytime soon. But the stock price is half of what it was in 2019. And in my opinion, this represents the perfect buying opportunity for something like that stock and others that have suffered because of the financial crisis, of the health crisis, which has led to the financial crisis. So you get to buy low, and then as the economy recovers and prices recover, you have an opportunity to sell at a profit. And that's the entire objective here. And if you are going to be investing for the long term, for your children's college, for retirement, once again, you have a great opportunity to take advantage of a depressed market. And then eventually, when the stock prices rise, you make a profit.
All right. Thank you so much, Kalila. So you heard it. The reason why now is a better time than perhaps in recent history to start investing on the stock market is because some of the prices have plummeted. You buy low, and then at a point in the future, not the very future, you know, not the near future, just hold it a little bit, nobody spend out the money. Sometime in the very near future, you can sell at a profit.
The mistake a lot of people make when investing in the stock market is that they jump on a hype. So you see a stock suddenly start doing very, very well, and now all of a sudden I want it. So like right now, last week, Fontana stock price rose 50% in 1 week from $7 to $12. And now everybody suddenly wants Fontana. But the time to have bought Fontana was not at $12, but at $7. Or at the IPO when it was $1.88 just 3 years ago. So yeah. You want to buy low and sell high.
So ladies and gentlemen, you can learn more in Kalila's masterclass, but right now, you get the masterclass right here on the Ministry of Finance's Wealth Summit. If you are just joining us, you missed the wealthy part. But we have a little bit more for you, because we're nice over here, we're nice bad. But before we go back to Kalila, we asked the question on social media: what are the keys to wealth creation based on Kalila's presentation? All right, the winner is the drum roll. We can't do the rolling thing with the tongue. May I try practice it. The winner is Xavier Hutchinson. Okay, that says MOF 200M. What that mean? What that? MOF Zoom. No, seriously, you need to take me up for that show, yeah. You know what I mean? MOF, he's watching. I assume Xavier is a male. He's watching on the Zoom stream on the Ministry of Finance's Facebook page. Thank you. So the question: what are the keys to wealth creation? The answer: real estate, entrepreneurship, the stock market through investing. And Kalila, you also did say bonds are another stream. Right,
so I love that with stock market investing.
Right.
So investing in assets. So and these include stocks, bonds, and so on.
Right. So for these persons who describe their money goals for 2022, all right, so based on what you shared with us, how can, for example, the person who wants to make more money reduce debt, the person who wants to reduce expenses in a real way, how can we guide that person?
Well, those are two different questions. Right. Reducing debt and reducing expenses.
Right.
So reducing expenses is a budget issue.
Yes.
So if you have a budget issue, you just need to look at your expenses, make a list of all of them and see what you can cut back.
Yeah.
Reducing debt now, there are different things that I see about this. It depends, first of all, on what type of debt that you actually have. So if you have high interest debts, such as a microfinance loan and credit card debt,
Right.
that can be very, very restrictive because those interest rates are upwards of 40%, and you don't even realize that the interest rate is that high.
Yeah.
If you have something like a mortgage or a car loan, those are, and if you've gotten that within the past 5-10 years, those are typically about 10%. And if you've gotten it in the past 5 years, it will likely be less than 10%, looking at 6, 7, 8%, maybe 9% interest rate. That, in my opinion, is manageable.
Yes.
Because you can make more than that interest by investing in something like the stock market. You can get a higher return, and that can help you to pay off your debt faster. But if you have very high interest rate like credit card debt, you need to prioritize that even before you start investing, because that is going to be a noose around your neck and you're never going to get out of it until you make it a priority. And one of the strategies I suggest is to utilize a salary deduction method. So what you do is what people say, paying yourself first. And you notice when you have a salary deduction, you never really notice that the money comes out of your salary because you don't really look at it, you don't look at the pay slip, and you just learn to live on the rest. You learn to live with what actually does hit your bank account. So set up a salary deduction with your employer and have that go straight to your debt servicing or straight to your investment account. And that way that is automatically taken care of every month.
All right, thanks. You can't say you didn't learn it here from Kalila Reynolds on the Wealth Summit. So I have 2 more questions for you just to respond again to making more money. You did allude to it in your presentation that some persons feel like the stock market is inaccessible, that you need a lot of money to get started. Really, what do you need to get started apart from just a decision, a deliberate decision? What else does one need?
So the first thing that you absolutely need is to open up your investment account. And there are brokerage firms in Jamaica that don't even require any money to open up that investment account. And I have a full list in my broker guide. So you can just go in, and it's typically the same documents that you need when you're creating a regular bank account. They ask you for your TRN, proof of employment, proof of address, that type of thing. And you open up that investment account, and that's how you start. And then the next step, of course, is to start putting money in that investment account and start actually investing.
Yes.
And stocks on the Jamaica Stock Exchange are relatively inexpensive. So like I said, the most expensive one now is $2,000, which is massive, which is way more expensive than most of them. NCB is $100, and that's one of the priciest.
Yes.
So you can buy $100, $500, $1,000 worth of stock, and then just build from there. And every month you invest another $1,000, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, whatever you can afford in that, and watch it grow over time.
All right. So the other 2, let us quickly wrap up by examining the other 2 keys to wealth. Entrepreneurship. You became an entrepreneur in 2020. You did say it. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a long-term commitment. What else would you advise persons who are thinking about it but have not yet made that decision?
Right. So entrepreneurship does take a lot of time, but you don't have to just get up one day and quit your job and become an entrepreneur. You can start as a side hustle. Start with whatever you have. You do not have to have this big amount of money, and you think that you need all this investment in order to start. People may look at me now, I have my own production studio now. I didn't start with a production studio. I started with just a cell phone, just myself talking to a cell phone, and grew that into what it is now. So you don't necessarily, thank you, you might say, oh, the bank won't give me a loan for this idea. Banks typically don't give loans for ideas at the idea stage. They want to see that your business is successful and that you can repay them. So you start with whatever you have, wherever you are, and you build upon that and grow.
All right. So the final key to wealth, real estate. In your examples, 2016, a house costed 25 million. Today in 2022, that has appreciated to 30.
It's probably more than that, 32.
32 million.
I was just using average inflation rates. And real estate inflation has actually been higher than average inflation. So it's more than that now.
Exactly. I think an average 10%. But for that person who would like to get to their first property, what is the simplest way?
All right, so one of the reasons I'm so passionate about stock market investing is that it can help you reach bigger goals faster.
Right.
As opposed to simply just putting down money and saving for that house, which is a trap that myself and my husband fell into.
Yes.
We just had all our money in a savings account and you just add to the savings account every month, and then you realize the goal that you had, you were saving down for the 10% on a $25 million home. By the time you finally save the 10%, the $25 million home now costs $35 million. And so now you need to save more to meet the 10%. But investing can help you reach that bigger goal a lot faster. So like I said, just start with what you have and eventually you'll get there.
Oh, thank you so much, Kalila Reynolds. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining Wealth Summit 2022, we're discussing a new year and new opportunities, and our guest, Kalila Reynolds, just shared with us 3 of those opportunities that can give you access to wealth. So for the first one, real estate; the second, entrepreneurship; the third, stock market investing. Now, if you don't understand these, you'd like to learn some more, if you want to become a little bit more comfortable, Kalila Reynolds, she has a masterclass that you can access on her website, KalilaReynolds.com. You're inside the Wealth Summit for 2022, where the objectives, I think, are being met. You know, we talked to Kalila good, and we're meeting the objectives, you know. Let me remind you what those are. To help to find Jamaicans solutions to financial security. Of course, the Wealth Summit opens the conversation between the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service and Jamaicans. And we also produce content that will empower Jamaicans when making financial decisions. We also empower Jamaicans through providing access to improved services that can help them to become more financially secure. And of course, if you listen to the entire presentation by Kalila Reynolds, you can agree that you got what you never did really pay for. You know, thank you so much again, Kalila, for your presentation and for sharing your knowledge. Thanks for being a part of Wealth Summit 2022 and the opportunities that you shared with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. All right, so as we continue the day's program, remember, you can send in your questions to the chat. I'm sure Kalila was very clear, so you didn't have any questions for her. But send your questions into the chat. We'll answer them for you. Remember to participate by answering the questions posed on the Mentimeter. And don't forget to share the link with your friends. You still have time. Just send that link to your friends, put it in a WhatsApp group. Nobody send a picture, nobody talk about Nelly today. Talk about Wealth Summit, all right? So we're gonna be discussing entrepreneurship, right? We have another guest who knows a thing or two about entrepreneurship. But before I get to that guest, I mentioned the Mentimeter, and I'd like to ask another question. So the question for the Mentimeter is, have you ever thought of doing a business pitch? And this is particularly for those persons who are interested in entrepreneurship. Have you ever thought of doing a business pitch? I'll leave that question there. You answer it for me, and we'll discuss it at the end of the next presentation by Javette Dixon. So Javette Dixon, he is no stranger to Jamaicans. You might remember him from NCB's Capital Quest. He was the winner that year. All right, if you don't remember it, just go on YouTube, search for NCB's National Capital Quest. A lot of things that you can learn from that program. So let me quickly introduce Javette for you. So he is the, oh, I beg your pardon. So Javette is an entrepreneur. He is the CEO of Point Global Marketing, and he'll be making a presentation on how to make the entrepreneurial pitch. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're in for a treat for somebody who is very experienced. He has been around the sun a couple times. He knows the game, and he will be giving you practical tips, guidelines, giving you the inside story. In other words, he might get a real deal. He might talk the things them real today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Javette Dixon. I beg your pardon, did I say Dixon? That's Nixon. I beg your pardon.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Again, I am Javette Dixon, CEO of Global Marketing. And today I'm going to talk to you about pitching. And you hear the term pitching, it's really how do you transmit a business idea to a third party? It's as simple as that. So I'll be going through some of the fundamentals and the context in which you would need to transmit those ideas. But ideas don't only need to be transmitted for businesses. Ideas need to be transmitted almost in every aspect of life and how we operate. We oftentimes have to convince colleagues, we have to convince other people of different things that we are working on. And that's in essence what a pitch is. It's the transmission of these ideas and what you're working on into a situation where somebody else can capture that idea. Do we have a clicker for this? Now, the important thing about pitching is that a context has to be established. There's always a power imbalance between the two persons, the party that you're trying to convince, especially in a business context. Now, as an investor, if you have an idea that you need funding for, you're typically going to somebody and asking them for funding. So there's an inherent imbalance. You usually have a comfort level with the idea. You usually have been working on this idea for a long time, so you have answers in your head that a third party does not have. So what it is that is important is how do I transmit the trust that I have in my idea to the third party? How do I transmit the confidence about the business idea that I have to the third party? Now, there's also different types of pitches. Typically, you will hear about an elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch is a way of conveying your idea in 30 seconds or less in a way that a person can understand. And there are certain key things that needs to be identified when you're doing an elevator pitch. For example, who are the customers that you're going to target as a business? What's the product you're offering, and how does that product offers a solution to the area of that you're working on? You know, a jumping off point for any business idea is that it must solve a problem. So you have to identify who are the persons that will benefit as a target from your solution, but also what is the solution that you are bringing to the market and what the problem is that it will be solving. The third thing that you need to convey very quickly is the market category that your idea fits in. You know, what's your idea designed to impact? Who is your idea designed to impact? And also a key benefit of the idea that you have. No, there's a simple structure for this that can be used to do this well. Now, I call it an elevator statement. It says, for customer targets who have a certain need, so you identify that need, you identify your business, and then you say it fits into X market category, and from that market category, this is the competition that we have in that category, but here is the differentiating thing that I need to do. So those are, you capture the target market, you capture the customer need, the product name, who are your competition immediately, and you fit the differentiating factor in very quickly. So I'll do one for example, my business. Point Global, for emerging businesses who need to scale their marketing and branding, is a marketing and branding firm that works specifically with emerging businesses. We give these emerging businesses the ability to access the services of an expert consultant and twin that with technology to deliver high-impact marketing and expand how they go into other markets. So that's a quick way of doing it. It's really identifying quickly all the critical areas of the business and then going from that. Now, for an investor, what an investor is thinking is, how do I preserve capital? So that's in the mindset of the investor is, I have money and you're coming to take my money. Maybe not in those terms, but it's really around capital preservation. They're asking themselves, how do I preserve capital? How do I maintain my capital? So they're evaluating your idea or your pitch from the standpoint of, I need to maintain capital. The pitch is, on the other side, needs to demonstrate executional aptitude. So as the person who is making the pitch, what you are trying to do, the context you're trying to operate in, is to convince the investor that you have the ability to execute what you're saying you're going to execute. So that's how the trust transfer actually happens. You're trying to convince, hopefully in a very apt way by using those areas, an investor that you're worthy of their investment. So as the imbalance is to ensure that you are transmitting your ideas in a way that can transfer trust in the idea. And remember, you have a lot more comfort with your idea than the investor or the third party would have just hearing the ideas. Now, how do you transmit that trust? One, you have to be authentic. Authenticity is extremely important when you're pitching, because person needs to understand that the person in front of them is who they're going to get when they actually invest in your idea, or when they whether that is time, energy, or money. So authenticity is important. It makes no sense to sell false narrative if you're pitching, because the expectation is that a person will be making a capital investment in your business idea, and that capital investment, they'll be working closely with you, so they will know who you are. So authenticity is an important element of pitching, being real, being upfront about the challenges that you might be having with your business. Show and demonstrate overt planning for what you're trying to do. If you're building a chicken farm, show what are the steps that you have done to build that. Show overt planning around the numbers that your numbers. How have you? What steps have you taken actively to realize your goal? And thirdly, the execution efficiency is an important part of any business idea. So more than anything, one of the things that demonstrate and transfer that trust is showing that you have demonstrated efficiency in the execution of your business idea. That you have gone out, you have registered some of the things that you heard initially in the morning session about registration, making sure that you know your numbers. Those things are important to demonstrating that you have done the work and understand the business. So what are some of the critical areas that you need to demonstrate that you understand when it comes on to business? One, you need to know who are your key partners to deliver the business that you're delivering. Two, you need to ensure that you're clear on the value that the business is bringing to the table. What problems is it solving? Why is it an investable business? How does the investor benefit from that investment and get a return on their investment? What is it? What are the critical areas to get to that? So in terms of funding, budgeting, what are your numbers do you need to have to ensure that you meet those targets? And finally, what is your track record? What is your track record as a person? What have you done before? There's a saying that the best predictor of future success is past success. So you need to demonstrate in your pitch, when you're pitching your business, that you have a demonstrated track record. There are things that you have accomplished And those things don't need to be massive. They need to show incremental improvement in the work that you have done. Have you done a business before? Did it fail? What lessons did you learn? So those are some of the things that investors look at when they're evaluating a pitch, and what you can ensure that you do when you're pitching. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about the how. It's important that you demonstrate and tell a real customer story. So if you're going to serve a customer, regardless of who that customer is, whether you're starting a business that does agriculture, or you're launching an app, or you're doing a restaurant, it's important that if you're pitching, the investor understand who are the real customers here and how are you impacting. How is the value exchange happening in that process? 2, it's important that you tell your story. Who are you? Why is this important to you? Why is this, are you a part of the group that you're trying to serve? Why is it important for you to build this business? What's going to make you succeed? What is personal to your story why you're going to succeed in this business? Now, for me, when I started Point Global, one of the reasons why I started it is because my mother was an entrepreneur, and I wanted her businesses like hers to benefit from consultancy services. That was my why. That was the part of my story that was personal to the business. So for me, that's why I wouldn't allow my business to fail, because it's so personal. It goes to the root of my relationship with my mother. So those many things inform why you start a business. But if you can demonstrate to a potential investor that this goes beyond just wanting to make money, but there's a greater why there in your story, why you have to do this, why is this important to you, what fuels the passion for the business, this is important. So really telling your story is essential in any business pitch. Now, the third thing is outlining the model. Now, a business model is simply how you exchange value. Why is somebody going to take money and pay for your product or service, and as a result of that, ensuring that your business is successful? So explaining that value exchange process, this is why a potential customer will buy this product, is an essential part of a pitch. And in many times, after you have dealt with the hurdle of 1, I have identified a new customer, or who my customers are. 2, I am a trustworthy person, and I have executional efficiency in that I'm going to execute the business properly. The third thing that the potential investors would want to know is, do I have a sensible business model? Have I already identified who my distributors are? If I need distributors, how is that value exchange going to take place? Make sure that your business is actually solving a problem, and be crystal clear about that problem. Now, this is one of the things that a lot of early stage businesses don't define well. They have an idea of what they want to do, but they haven't defined specifically the problem in a very granular way that they are solving. And that clarity around the problems that you're solving is an essential part of being able to do a well-defined business model that can actually lead to value exchange. So if you are trying to serve women in agriculture, it's important that you are clear on where those problems, what exists, or what is hampering that process, and then investing and modeling your solution to solve that problem. The numbers. Another problem area for a lot of emerging entrepreneurs is the understanding of your numbers. Now, this is critical to landing investment. You have to understand who your business are, what profitability of your business, who your customers are, the profitability of each customer, how is that translating into the sales, and how is that sales then translating into the profits. So in order to do that, you have to understand what are the cost drivers in your business. And then finally, what is another essential thing in how do you do a winning pitch is demonstrating work. Show minimally usable product to the potential investor. Let them see that you have actually engaged in figuring out how am I going to build what I'm saying that I'm going to build. Have you designed a minimum viable product that can be offered to the market to learn about your customers? Have you prototyped what you're doing? So if you're doing a sauce, if you're doing bottled water, have you built a dialed down version of what you want to bring to the market? Because a lot of people are visual, a lot of people are tactile. You want to show your potential investors that, hey, I've done some work, I've built something, and if you make this investment, this is what will result in the process. So those are some of the critical things as to the how. As I close, just to reiterate, extremely important point. A pitch is an exchange of ideas. You're exchanging the ideas because you want to transmit trust. You want to transmit trust, you want to transmit confidence. You want to show that you have thought about your business, that you have done the work, and that you're making the connection for the investor. And you do that by, one, telling your story and your business story, by two, demonstrating that you have the efficiency and the aptitude to execute what you're doing, and that you have built something that has been solving a specific marketing, a specific business need. Thank you.
All right. All right. I'm sure you were paying specific attention to what Javette had to say. He shared a lot of gems about pitching your business idea. Before we speak with Javette, remember that there's a question in the chat that we wanted to answer. What is your pitch? What is your business pitch for those persons who would have made starting a business as one of their New Year's resolutions? We wanted to answer that question. What would be your business pitch? Have you thought about it? And if not, why not? Javette, thank you so much for that presentation.
My pleasure.
I just feel rich. I just sit down good. Cross my legs like how rich people do it. All right, so we're about to chat with Javette Nixon. If you're just joining us, you're inside Wealth Summit, February 2022. We're talking about a new year and the new opportunities that it presents. Let me just quickly introduce Javette so you can know, say, when him talk with time teeth, him talk with time whole mouth and him head, all right? So he's a serial entrepreneur, a marketer, and an investor. He's a founder and chairman and CEO of Seaforth Holdings Limited, a boutique investment and holding company specializing in impact investing. You're gonna tell me some more about that. And the development of emerging businesses, social enterprises. He is on a mission to transform lives and businesses. In his upcoming book, From the Margins, which is available on his website, JavetteNixon.com, he shares insights on finance, marketing, and innovation. As a global citizen with Caribbean roots, he has over 2 decades of experience in a variety of industries, gained both in the United States and Jamaica. His passions and experiences are diverse, ranging from volunteerism and philanthropy to web development and design, economics, commerce, media, e-commerce, banking, and internet marketing. Javette's other portfolio companies currently include, as you mentioned earlier at the top, Point Global Marketing Limited, Esther Ventures Limited, Esther Finance Limited, and Javette is a graduate of the University of University of the West Indies, Mona. I went to UTech, it's a default. And HULT Business International. He is also an alumnus of the University of London and the Technology Innovation Center Incubator. The University of Technology, there we go, and the Branson Center of Entrepreneurship in the Caribbean. And he's a young leader of the America's Professional Fellow. So as I said, when Javette talk, him not talk with him teeth, him talk with him whole mouth. Javette, thanks so much for joining us, for sitting down with us to discuss some more about the pitch. And as you simply said, it's just simply an exchange of idea, an exchange of value. All right, but you see, for those of us who head kind of, you know, it's not so fluid in our mind. I'm not gonna say it tough. You know what I mean? It's not so fluid. Can you give us an example of what a good pitch is? Right.
So again, thank you again for the introduction.
Yes.
A good pitch is one, clear.
Yes.
So you need to be absolutely clear. If it's an elevator pitch, you need to ensure that it's also precise in terms of timing, because an elevator pitch should only last 30 seconds. But nobody makes a business decision on an elevator pitch. So usually an elevator pitch is a primer. It is to say to someone, hey, this is my idea. Do you see value in it?
Right.
Usually if you do an elevator pitch properly, it extends to a long form pitch where an investor wants to sit down with you to understand your business. Mm-hmm. Now, sitting down is understanding your business and the solution you're trying to bring to the market or have brought to the market, and understanding you and why you are uniquely able to deliver the solution to the market. Mm-hmm. And those are the two questions that are really being answered in a pitch. What is the clear problem you're solving, mm-hmm. and why should you solve that problem?
All right, let me just put you on the spot now, because we're still, we don't wake up yet. 11 o'clock. So, Wealth Summit.
Yes.
If you were pitching Wealth Summit to, say, the Minister of Finance,
yes.
Give me the 30-second pitch.
So, Wealth Summit is designed to impact small and emerging business owners, as well as people who are looking for opportunities to make more money. And as a result of that, we think the ministry designing the Wealth Summit to impact these individuals would not only ensure that the business sends the right signal to Jamaicans in terms of their own wealth, but also it provides an opportunity for learning, which is always good for the Jamaican citizen.
All right. I want to give out of 10.
I'm standing by Bill,
out of 10, how much that? Out of 10, how much that? Secretly, secretly, my wife just kind of tell them. So you see, the next Wealth Summit, just in case, you understand? Just in case if they say, we ain't gonna bother, Javed taught the things them out of all of your mouth, or your teeth, or all of your mouth. It provides an opportunity for the Ministry of Finance to impact learning, and that is exactly what Wealth Summit is about. Now, if you are on social media, okay, and you listened attentively to Mr. Javed, please answer this question for us, please and thanks. The question is, how do you transmit trust when making a pitch? All right, just to give you a little clue. Give them a clue, Javed?
Sure.
Yeah, a little clue. There are 3 ways. There are 3 components of transmitting trust when making a pitch. If you answer that for me, I might have something for you. All right? Trust me. All right, so Javed, back to the conversation. Right, so the pitch is where it starts. That is where the idea is related to another party. What I found interesting from your presentation was a really simple concept. The investor is seeking to retain capital, right? And the entrepreneur wants access to that capital. So the way to do it is just to transmit trust. Demonstrate how I can, in simple terms, make more money on your money. All right? What have you found as a marketer working with emerging businesses and individuals? What have you found to be one of the shortcomings in making a pitch? Is it identifying the value or communicating the value?
I think one of the major issues is an imbalance in understanding that at the end of the day you're dealing with an individual.
Right.
And if you're coming to me as an investor, and I'm the investor, the truth is I know that there's a problem you want to solve. Because of how Jamaicans have a tendency to how they evaluate failure or how they evaluate what they see as not perfect, they tend to come and they embellish, they oversell. An investor already knows that you're there because you're trying to build something that is going further. They want to know that you have identified the problems that their capital will be able to solve. So you don't need to oversell. Because in overselling, you open yourself up to two things. One, attracting the wrong investor, because you haven't laid out precisely what the problem you have, so the investor can look on and say, okay, I can help you solve that problem. And two, businesses never need money only.
Yes.
They need people who are going to help them along the way, who are going to mentor the investor. So if the biggest mistake is not being authentic to the business, not being authentic to the story, and not being clear what the problems you as the entrepreneur or the person with the idea has, and why the investor would be able to solve it. So that clarity, the imbalance between I don't have any capital and you have capital allows a lot of investors, a lot of entrepreneurs to oversell when they really should just be real and just tell exactly the story, exactly why they need capital and what's the problem they are solving.
So let me just use you as an example, because you're a CEO. What do you like to see in an entrepreneur who comes to you? Of course, you never do it, authenticity, but what else do you like to see? And based on your experience, what else do other capital providers, let us call them that, want to see in an entrepreneur?
So I use some big words. I said executional efficiency.
Yes.
What I mean is the ability to do the work.
Right.
So a person needs to, one, demonstrate that if I'm going to build a rocket, I know how to build a rocket.
Right.
Because chances are your investor is not going to know how to build a rocket.
Right.
So if you're coming to me with an idea that, hey, I'm going to sell sauce,
yes,
you have to demonstrate executional efficiency.
Right.
That you can actually sell the sauce.
Right.
So that is the one thing. That's the first thing I look for, because if you can't sell the sauce, no matter how much money you have, you will never be able to actually make the business successful.
Right.
The second thing is that you actually, Kalila spoke about it,
yes,
that you're actually aware of the amount of work that is required. I like this. Mike Tyson has a phrase, everybody has a plan until they have been punched in the mouth. And it's the same thing for business. Business is always 10 times more difficult than you think. And the work that you will have to be doing is 10 times harder than you think. So an appreciation of that work, regardless of how simple the business is, an appreciation of the time and energy and the work that is required is the second thing.
Right.
Now, if you can, one, demonstrate that you know what you're trying to impact and you can do the work, executional efficiency, and two, you understand the required amount of work that will need to go into this, then the only other thing to demonstrate, and this is the clincher, is whether you know the numbers and your business model well. Because if you know the numbers well, that means whatever you're asking of the investor will line up with that. So so people go in and say, I am going to ask for $25 million, when really what they need is $1 million to get to another milestone, and they can go back and ask for another million.
No, Javed, they want 25 million.
Because you have to line up, you have to make sure that you know your numbers well enough, that what you're asking the investor for is in line with what your business is ready for at the moment.
All right, so you heard that, ladies and gentlemen. What capital providers, investors are looking for, apart from authenticity, they are looking for your ability to actually do what you say you can do or are going to do. All right, that's number one. Number two, they want to know that you understand the amount of work that is required to get to the goal that you have enunciated. That's number two. You just know, say, you know the work, you know how much it's going to take, and most of all, you're willing to do the work, right? And number three, you understand the business, the broader business, not as critical as 1 and 2, but just as important. You understand the numbers that you're working with, right? So that in order to bring value to the investor over time. Javed, from your standpoint, what are some of the opportunities that are presenting themselves in 2022?
No, that's an important question, because I think COVID has shifted what is possible for a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
Maybe a shameless plug, but this is precisely what From the Margin actually discusses in my book. The landscape for entrepreneurship has changed. We hear opportunities from crypto, but even broader than crypto are things like the metaverse and what that will represent for emerging businesses as they grow. So the biggest opportunity is in digital and digital transformation. And businesses who are focused on providing solutions around digital or digital transformation are in an amazing place to succeed. But the other massive opportunity for Jamaicans as a whole is something that we have in abundance, is how do we access our own creativity? So there's a book called The Sovereign Individual. And we are moving into an age of the sovereign individual, where persons with talent, persons with the ability to dance, the ability to paint, the ability to do something, can bring that thing to the market and make money from it in ways that they can't do before. If you're a maker of craft, you have Spotify, you have Etsy that you can place, or Shopify that you can place your items on. If you are somebody who has a great speaking voice, who people like to hear, you can launch a podcast. There you go. So this creative agency that digital unlocks for persons is massive. And in a country like Jamaica, where most of us don't have a big capital base, our ability to invest in ourselves has been amplified through digital. And the third thing that is massive, which is also related to Jamaica, is our ability to create experiences. I know that COVID has kind of put a damper on that, but COVID will go at some point in time. And you heard from Kalila say, invest when the market is low.
Right.
So if you want to create an experience, if you want to create, if you see something that you want to bring to the market, now is when you bring it, because now is the best time to invest, because everybody's rethinking and repositioning. So there are opportunities even as people rethink what they want to bring out. So experiences is another massive area in a Jamaican context, in a tourism context, and in a cultural context when we are creative. That is massive for us. And I've identified those businesses because those businesses are low capital requirement businesses.
Right.
You can put out a product on digital
Yes.
with little capital investment, and you can bring other people on through just pitching your ideas to those persons. I did that in COVID, and I've seen other people do it in COVID, where they have brought out a business to market in the COVID environment. And because people are more open to opportunities, if you can demonstrate that, look, the capital requirement is not that high, and I have the ability to actually deliver this, people will invest.
Okay, all right. You heard it from Javette. He just listed 3 ways, 3 opportunities, 3 avenues for opportunities for creating wealth in 2022. I would like to call it the post-COVID economy. Now, before we wrap up with Javette, I want to tell you who the winner of the social media question is. All right? By the way, this is the second gentleman that is winning this morning. Ladies, we're on the day. Please and thanks. Please just push the man out of the way. Just for that question here, please. All right, the next one. So, I don't know how to pronounce your surname, because I ain't going to do that thing again, where should I say Zoom, or I said 200M. Not that again. So, Jerry, you are the winner of the question that was asked on social media. Jerry is watching from the Ministry of Finance's Facebook page. The question was, how do you transmit trust when making a pitch? And the answer is 1, be authentic. 2, be authentic, overt, and deliberate. 3, be authentic. 2, overt and deliberate planning. And 3, executional efficiency. Those are the ways that we transmit trust when making a pitch. All right, so congratulations, Jerry. I don't know if I am not pronouncing your surname correctly, but Jerry, watching on the Ministry of Finance's Facebook page, congrats, you have just won yourself a prize. Just keep in touch, or rather the Ministry of Finance will be in touch with you on how to claim that prize. So Javed, as we wrap up our discussion, bring us back again to the pitch, because this is what I'm getting is is not a very strong point for most entrepreneurs. They have the words, but they don't come out very well. Yeah, it is there, they know it, but they can't express it. They're not able to articulate it so that an investor can listen and be immediately interested or even become interested. So bring us back to when you won NCB's Capital Quest. What did it for you, in your opinion? When you look back, what was the winning formula?
Right. So if you recall Jerry's response,
yes,
the second point
yes,
is demonstrate overt
and deliberate planning.
Yes. And that is critical for a pitch like NCB Capital Quest, where you know beforehand that the pitch is in 6 weeks.
Yes.
So you have a lot of time to prepare. So it's not an elevator pitch where you just kind of run into somebody, and it's a prepared pitch. You're going in and you're going to present to investors. So that overt and deliberate planning part is critical.
Yes.
Because you don't know what questions might come up. You don't know what they're going to ask. So you need to ensure that you know everything there is to know about your business at that point in time. Everything there is. So an investor shouldn't ask you, what's your gross margin? Are you profitable yet? How much customers are you serving? And you don't have the ability to answer. But even some people are better at presenting than others. But the idea is that you will have enough time to prepare so that when you go in and somebody's asking these questions, you can immediately demonstrate an answer to these questions. But also realize that a pitch, if somebody's going to invest in your business, the pitch is not the only thing that will decide the investment. There's a due diligence process.
Yes.
So it's important that when you say, I am serving 1,000 customers,
yes,
when the due diligence process is going on, that is demonstrated that you're actually serving 1,000 customers.
Right.
Because that's
or
a lot
more,
of people.
Or more.
That's where or more. Because that's where the breakdown happens. Because yes, you told me you're serving 1,000 customers, and then when I do the due diligence process, when I'm looking at your business, looking at your customer base, I only see yourself 3 people. So that you don't transmit. That's where the breakdown of trust is. You need that. So critical is that overt planning, and on NCB Capital Quest, that was what was key. I spent almost the entire season of that show really ensuring that I understood my business, I understood where we wanted to go with the business, I understood who we were impacting, and any question that was answered, I was in a position to deliver, to answer in a way that the investors would be able to understand.
All right, thank you so much, Javette. I think that's a good point on which to end our conversation. What is critical in making preparations for your winning pitch? Not only the pitch to pay attention to, but ensure that you understand the business, that you are adequately informed, that you are adequately prepared. That is part of the combination for the winning formula of entrepreneurship, especially if you're seeking external investment. Ladies and gentlemen, you are inside the Ministry of Finance and the Public Services Wealth Summit, February 2022. We're discussing the new year and the opportunities that it will bring. We were just speaking with Javette Nixon. He is the CEO of Point Global Marketing Limited, a marketing firm. If you want to reach out to Javette, hit him up on his website, javettnixon.com. He has a book out, and that's From the Margin. All right, interesting stuff about finance and marketing. Thank you so much, Javette, for joining us on the Wealth Summit, February 2022. Okay, all right. So where's my Mentimeter question? So we asked, are you making a pitch? Are you afraid to make a pitch? How do you feel when making a pitch? All right, can you help me again, Shaquille? All right, so what we have here is actually people are they're not so afraid of making a pitch. Somebody says, yes, I'm ready. All right, 1% of persons says they are nervous, so quite understand that. we quite get that, the nervousness. But we appreciate that some of us are quite confident about their abilities to make a pitch. And I'm sure after Javette's presentation, you are more empowered, you are more informed, you are more prepared, you are more tooled up in making a pitch. So remember, one of the key elements in making a pitch is demonstrate authenticity and an execution capacity. Meaning, in simple terms, make sure so the people them can see, say you know how to do what you say you're going to do. All right, as we continue Wealth Summit 2022, New Year, New Opportunities, we have another presenter, somebody that you are quite familiar with, I'm sure. Ladies and gentlemen, the doctor is in the house, Dr. Alfred Dawes. And I call him not notice yet, you know, him not notice yet. Me call him the good body doctor, right? The good body doctor. I'm going to tell you about it after he makes his presentation on Your Health is Your Wealth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Alfred Dawes.
Hey, good afternoon, and thank you for tuning in. So I'll be speaking a little bit today about the most valuable asset that anyone can have. It's a real, tangible asset, and that is your health. Your health is indeed your wealth. So what exactly is health? We simply look at health as the absence of disease. But in reality, health is a little bit more than that. And from as far back as 1948, the WHO came up with a definition. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. And this takes into consideration that while you may be of sound body, your mind may not be sound, in that your personal relationships are in problems. You may be stressed, or you may at the extreme be suffering from mental illness. Next. So let us look at what's happening in the world right now in terms of the state of health. Even though we're in the middle of a pandemic, the top 10 causes of death are still not reflected as COVID. So when you look at the number one killer, and this is in Jamaica, if you look at the trends between 2009 to 2019, before the pandemic, you'll realize that it is the chronic diseases that are killing people. Now, we have moved beyond the infectious diseases such as pneumonia, tuberculosis, and other viruses and bacteria resulting in illness and death in our tropical climate. So what was considered first world country diseases. So the stroke, diabetes, ischemic heart disease, chronic kidney disease, prostate cancer, hypertensive heart disease, Alzheimer's, and of course lung cancer, because of the risk of smoking that we still have as a part of our culture here in Jamaica. COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, that is related to smoking again, and colorectal cancer, which is one of the tumors that we don't think about a lot, but is very common in Jamaica, and we'll speak a little bit about that. We actually saw a decline in interpersonal violence as a cause of death in Jamaica between 2009 and 2019. It will be interesting to see where it is right now. Now, in order to preserve our health, we ought to try and mitigate those risk factors, the way in which you would hedge against losses if you're investing. And when you look at the risk factors for these conditions, what jumps out is that there are a lot of modifiable risk factors, meaning that some factors you can't do anything about. Where you live, we will have air pollution. If you live in a city, you will be driving in traffic and you will have the exhaust from the vehicles. If you're in the country and you're cooking with a wooden fire, then of course you will have the smoke to deal with that. So all of these are air pollution that can affect your body overall. But we have behavioral risks such as alcohol use, unsafe sex, tobacco, dietary risk, and malnutrition, which not necessarily is for lack of food, but the types of food that we're eating with poor nutritional value can cause malnutrition, which is essentially bad nutrition. Now, these factors can interplay in causing the metabolic risks to be developed. And these metabolic risks have to do with the dysfunction in the hormones in your body. And when that happens, you tend to have high fasting plasma glucose, which can eventually lead to diabetes. You can have a high body mass index, which is just a fancy term for being extremely overweight or obese. And of course, you can have with that high fatty acid and cholesterol levels in your bloodstream. So we'll speak a little bit more about these chronic non-communicable diseases that are all related through metabolism dysfunction. So most commonly, what we would think about when we think about chronic non-communicable diseases is hypertension and diabetes. But they're only a part of what we call the metabolic syndrome. And this really happens when the body is dysregulated in terms of how it deals with the food that is taken in. And you have three main components of the metabolic syndrome. Obesity, which I had mentioned before, is when you're overweight to the point of your weight for your height being above 30 on the scale that we use, the BMI index scale. Dyslipidemia, meaning that your cholesterol levels and your fatty acid levels in your bloodstream are out of control. And of course, glucose intolerance, that is the precursor to diabetes. Now, you may have glucose intolerance and insulin resistance, and that can be associated with, especially in females, polycystic ovarian syndrome, but other conditions in males. And if left unchecked, if we don't screen for it and make the adjustments in our lifestyle, it can progress to full-blown diabetes. So that is the problem that we're having right now. Obesity is, sorry, just back up a little bit for me. Obesity is a major problem right now in 2022 in Jamaica, not just in Jamaica, in the world. As a consequence of obesity, the prevalence of insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes has to do with the absolute lack of insulin, you're just not producing enough. With type 2 diabetes, you're producing sometimes even more than enough insulin, but your body is resistant to the insulin, telling it to control the blood glucose levels. So you have that condition called insulin resistance, where your blood sugar levels can be higher, or if it's normal, it is as a result of your body working overtime to try and get that blood sugar under control. So that insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes are a major problem. They are related to obesity. And with that, you have cardiovascular disease, disease of the blood vessels, disease of the heart, cerebrovascular disease, diseases of the blood vessels in the brain, as well as what is called non-alcoholic fatty liver, meaning that when you actually look at the liver, it can be yellow with the amount of fat that is inside of it. And that now has gone to be the #1 cause of cirrhosis in many developed countries, as opposed to the previous #1 cause, alcoholism. So these are all increasing in prevalence, and they're causing a huge economic burden. And that is how it is going to directly affect your finances. Now, in Jamaica, the obesity rate is rising rapidly and steadily. In men, not so much as women. The last review that we had shows that the obesity rate in females is at about 33%. In males, it's about 15%, so overall for the country, we're at 25%. But the women are in danger, more so than the men, and that is something that we need to look at. In this graph, you'll realize that we have been moving from just over 10% in the 1970s, and our trajectory is on target to have us be in the same category as other developed countries, or in developed countries such as United States and Western European countries. So what exactly does this have to do with your risk of morbidity or sickness and your mortality or death rates? So if you look at each one by itself, you will realize that certain conditions overlap. So hypertension, with the high blood pressure, it can cause direct damage to the blood vessels, and you can end up with kidney disease needing dialysis. You may have heart disease because the heart is working so hard to pump this blood throughout the body, and the blood vessels themselves going to the heart are damaged by the high blood pressure. So that may happen if a blood vessel bursts inside your brain, you can end up with a stroke. Atherosclerosis, or thickening of the arteries with plaques, that can lead to damage to blood vessels, again in the heart, in the kidney, but also in our limbs, leading to amputations, as well as in our eyes, leading to blindness. Now, diabetes is one of the worst conditions you can get, because not only does diabetes lead to direct damage to the kidneys and the heart and the blood vessels, but diabetes actually causes damage directly to the eyes, to the nervous system, and in women, it can lead to greater pregnancy complications. So let's delve a little bit more into diabetes. Diabetics have double the mortality risk of similarly aged people without diabetes. So if you are diabetic, you're twice as likely to die at that age than anyone else. It is the 7th leading cause of death in the United States, and it is a leading cause of kidney failure, non-traumatic lower limb amputations, when we have, as we call it, the Jamaican sore foot, and we cut it off. Diabetes is usually implicated in the development of these ulcers. And it also causes a lot of blindness among adults, because the vessels leading to the eyes are damaged and they can lead to bleeding inside the eye. Now, we're always told that these are lifestyle diseases and these are Western diseases, but is that really true? If you look on the world right now, the patterns that are changing, you're realizing that many of the developing countries are seeing a rapid increase in diabetes and the complications that come with having that disease. So a lot of that has to do with fast food and the change in our diet. I mean, we used to be a cricketing region. Now all of that is gone. We're still playing some football, but our lifestyles have become a lot more sedentary. And then we are seeing that our diets are changing to take in more of the fast food and the processed foods that originated in the first world countries. So we can't really call it a disease of affluence. This is rich man, you know, we had a song, rich man living in a heart attack, poor people living in a shack. That's not true anymore. Poor countries are the worst affected, not in terms of just prevalence, but the deaths, because our health systems cannot cope with the burden of these chronic diseases. 80% of chronic disease deaths occur in low and middle income countries like Jamaica. This is a serious statistic, and it should guide our policies moving forward. So how badly is it affecting us here in Jamaica? Well, Jamaicans living with diabetes and hypertension, when you look at the latest studies, about 12% of Jamaicans are living with diabetes. About 34% are living with hypertension. And the sad thing is that half of those with hypertension don't even know that they're hypertensive, and that is why hypertension is called a silent killer, because you'll be walking around not knowing that you're having serious damage being done to your kidneys, your heart, your eyes, your brain, and the only time you know about it may be when you get that stroke. So the question is, do you believe that you will develop type 2 diabetes in your lifetime? The truth is that the risk of it happening is a lot higher than what you would imagine. So let's take a look at a little bit more of risk factor modification. So the causes of chronic diseases, of course, there are underlying socioeconomic, cultural, political, and environmental determinants. Globalization, we're having changes in diet, we're having cheaper foods coming in that are processed than what we can grow ourselves. Urbanization, people are moving to the cities, the diets change when you go to the city, you spend a lot more time in traffic, you're more stressed out, you're not breathing in fresh air, and the chances are you're eating less fruits and vegetables because they cost more in the city than if you're just jumping a wall to get some free mangoes. Our population is also aging, which is a good thing in terms of our healthcare being improved, so we're not dying when we're younger from infectious diseases. But with that, we're having the negative effects coming forward. So if you look at some of the risk factors. When you have an unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, tobacco use, you can end up with these intermediate risk factors for developing these conditions. And these are raised blood pressure, raised blood glucose levels, abnormal blood lipids or fats, and being overweight and obesity. And this is where, in preserving your health, screening is crucial. Once you can pick up these characteristics that you are in danger of developing diabetes because of your blood sugar being high or your insulin levels being high, if your blood pressure is just starting to get higher, or if you're realizing your fatty acids and cholesterol levels are high in the bloodstream, or if you're just doing your simple BMI measures to see that you're overweight or obese, you can intervene before you get to the point where you're getting complications arising from these chronic non-communicable diseases such as the heart disease, the stroke, the cancer, chronic respiratory diseases like COPD, and the diabetes directly causing death, as was seen in our previous slide. So we've been always told that the obesity epidemic, we look at people, oh, you eat too much and you exercise too little. Is that really the case? It's a lot more than that, really. We like to look at things from a simplistic point of view and try to find one singular reason why an event is taking place. Most times, in reality, these events are multi-causal. So we know that the big two, eat right and exercise, like doctors have been telling patients from time immemorial, is just not enough. There's evidence that they are the main cause of epidemic, and that halting them would reverse it. It is largely circumstantial evidence that has led us to that thinking. We did a lot of research, and we know that it is far more than just telling people to eat less calories. There are hormonal imbalances. The fat that you have in your body actually makes you put on more weight, and it's a slippery slope, and it continues until you can break the cycle. So where did this thought come from? Well, it started when President Eisenhower got a heart attack, and that highlighted that there was an increase in heart disease in America. And because of that, people started to look for a cause. And what they tuned into at that time was the big fat lie, meaning that we thought that fats make you fat. So if you eat more fat, you're going to put on weight. So from then, the whole food industry just grabbed onto that, and then they pushed the Mediterranean diet, which was low in fat and rich in unsaturated fats and a higher carb content. And they said that this was the ideal diet. So eventually, what was taught was that low fat equals healthy, and low fat started to be branded on all the foods. The problem is that fat tastes good. And when you remove the fat, you are going to be left with bland food. And that is how we had to replace the fat with sugar. So we started to add a lot of sugar. And it was when we started to add a lot of sugar in our diets that we saw the explosion in obesity. High fructose corn syrup was pushed by the special interest groups, and high fructose corn syrup was added to everything: salad dressings, children's medication, all of the low-fat foods, and it became a staple, and consumption rose significantly, and our taste for it grew. Big soda, of course, came on board. There's no health authority that has the advertising budget of a lot of these food industry giants. And of course, with fast food globalization, we're having every single chain of fast foods in every single country at this point in time. And as soon as the per capita income rises, the fast food chains are there. And they're no longer seen as treats, they are seen as staples, as you can see with the long lines when we're going home in the evenings. So the free markets, pushed by globalization, have had expensive results on developing countries that don't have the robust health systems to take care of persons who develop these chronic non-communicable diseases. Our tastes have changed. We're looking for more processed foods, freezer foods, convenience foods that we can simply warm up, throw in the microwave. And then when we get overweight, we start on fat diets. And these fat diets cause not just fat loss, but muscle loss. When you lose muscle, you actually slow down your metabolism because muscle burns fat at rest. So the less muscle you have, the less your ability to burn calories. So that's what happened with a lot of these fad diets, and you end up with a yo-yo diet, and you're just on a hamster wheel chasing results. But there are other factors that play a role. Not enough sleep equals obesity, because your cortisol levels, your stress hormone levels naturally fall during sleep. If you're not getting adequate sleep and you're stressed, then your cortisol levels are going to be high. You're going to put on all of that weight, especially in your midsection. Warm houses demand less personal energy. We don't shiver. Less smoking. Smoking has only one good thing, in that it's when people quit, they tend to eat more and put on weight. That is not an endorsement from me to say that you should go smoking to lose weight. No. But should you quit smoking, you will likely put on some weight. And then there are certain characteristics that we see. We don't know how much of it is genetic or how much of it is because of the practices in the house. But overweight mothers tend to have overweight children. Is it genes, or is it what they're buying and feeding them? It's up in the air. Overweight mothers also tend to have more children based on the studies that are out there. And older mothers tend to have overweight children as well. And we know that with our declining fertility rate, a part of that is due to mothers deferring having children because they're pursuing career and business. And as the population naturally ages, we're realizing, of course, that the average weight is going to go up with the average age, because older people generally tend to weigh more. We all know this when we look back at our skinny pictures in our youth. And then, of course, some of the medications that we're using, they actually cause weight gain. Environmental pollution, there is some evidence to say that where we live and work actually influence our ability to gain or lose weight. So, metabolic adaptation. Why is it so hard to lose weight? Well, we all know that when we're dieting, you cut your calories and you're losing weight, and then all of a sudden you hit a plateau. You're eating the same way, but you're not losing any more weight. And you get frustrated and you come off the diet, and as soon as you come off that diet, the weight just comes back and rebounds to an even higher value. Well, that is because of metabolic adaptation. As your body loses weight, it slows down the metabolism. One, you're lighter, so you need less energy to move around than someone who is heavier. So you're going to be burning less calories per day. If you look at one real-world example, the TV show The Biggest Loser, when they looked at those persons a few years out, those who had lost 100 and odd pounds with diet and exercise, many of them, the majority of them in fact, had regained all of the weight. So not surprisingly, many of those who had kept it off, their new job was to be an endorsement, was to do product endorsement or do a fitness business. So their jobs entail them maintaining that weight. For the average person, it is hard to lose weight and maintain it once you hit a high BMI, usually over 40, and that is why we have bariatric surgeons like myself. So if what we are doing is not working, what is the solution? We must have sustainable weight loss, and our approach to food, our relationship with food has to change. We have to decrease our calories overall. We don't literally have to be counting every single calories, but have a general idea. You can't be consuming 3,000, 3,500 calories per day when you're only burning on average 2,500 calories. All of those surplus calories are going to be stored as fat. Watch not just the fat, but the carbs as well. Coming out of the failure of the low-fat diets is the low-carb diets, and then people are going high-fat and low-carb, and they're still not losing weight, or they can't sustain it. What we have to remember is that whatever you're doing, you must be able to enjoy food, and you must be able to have treats. But nobody deserves a treat every day. You're just not that good. And then I must mention a little bit about bariatric surgery, which is weight loss surgery that refers. We either remove a part of the stomach or reroute the stomach, the direction where the food will go, and that will achieve sustained weight loss. We use it not just to prevent and treat obesity-related diseases, but we can actually cure many of these diseases with bariatric surgery. And the most common types we have are the gastric bypass, the sleeve gastrectomy, which is most common in Jamaica. The lap band has fallen out of favor, and the gastric balloon, which is non-operative, is one that has really been shown to work. So going into chapter 2, the big C, cancer. Cancer is a serious issue in Jamaica, and no matter how much money you have, you can't stop yourself from getting cancer. We all produce cancer cells every day. It is a matter of having a robust immune system to defeat those cancer cells before they can grow to a point where they cause damage. And of course, if they do start to grow, we have to screen to catch it at an early stage. So in males, the leading sites of cancer are the prostate, the lung, the colorectum, the stomach, and lymphomas. In females, the leading sites are breast, colorectum, cervix, and the uterus. Breast cancer deserves special mention in females because we are heading in the wrong direction. Breast cancer usually affects females over the age of 50. It's the most common cancer among women worldwide, with an estimated 2 million new cases in 2018. In Jamaica, between 2010 and 2014, we had 1,634 breast cancer-related deaths. That equals about 24% of all female cancer deaths. So if you're a female and you're a career-driven and you're trying to make all of this money, if you're going to be getting a cancer, there's a 1 in 4 chance that it's going to be breast cancer. And the problem is that we have an increasing trend in breast cancer mortality in Jamaica. In other countries in the world, it is going down, but in Jamaica, it is going up. So the incidence of breast cancer in Western Europe is about 92 per 100,000. In America, it's about 124 per 100,000. Now in Africa, it's about 28 per 100,000. So they're pretty low, but the mortality rates are higher in Africa and other developing countries and account for about 58% of all breast cancer deaths worldwide. Why? Because we're not screening, we're not trying to get the cancers early enough where treatment can result in a cure. That, coupled with genetic issues where blacks can have worse disease, especially in the younger females, that is a problem. Survival rates vary worldwide, and of course the developed countries have the highest survival rates. The low survival rates in developing countries are multifactorial, as I mentioned: lack of early detection, inadequate diagnostic and treatment options. We don't have good drugs, and we'll speak a little bit about that. We don't have good treatment readily available. Now in Jamaica, breast cancer is a major problem because we have one of the highest incidence rates for breast cancer in the Caribbean, with about 43 per 100,000. Women in Jamaica tend to have more aggressive disease associated with an early age of diagnosis, a higher grade, meaning how poorly the cancer is differentiated, and it's associated with aggression. And we tend to have more advanced stages, stage 3 and stage 4, as opposed to in developed countries where on mammograms they're more likely to find a precancerous lesion, or they may find a stage 1 or stage 2 disease that is easier to treat. So with that, our mortality has increased from 21.8 per 100,000 in 2010 to 28 per 100,000 in 2014. So we are headed in the wrong direction. What's worrying is that the annual increase in breast cancer mortality rates among younger women 35 to 44 years old and those older than 75 years old is increasing, and those are not the age groups that we usually screen for. So you have to look at your personal risk if you have a family history, or if you're just generally concerned, because it's screening that is going to be your best bet. Now for men, the focus really is on the prostate. That is the #1 killer of men in terms of cancer. So what exactly is a prostate? We hear a lot about it. The prostate gland is a tiny gland. It's about the size of a guinea, a pretty big guinea, and it's located between the bladder and surrounds the upper part of the urethra, or the tube that you pee through. and that carries urine from the bladder. It produces the majority of the fluid that comes with in an ejaculate. Prostate cancer is typically slow growing, and in some cases it can be very aggressive and progress quickly to death. So looking a little bit more on prostate cancer, we can see that in 2018 we had about 1,309 new prostate cancer cases, and that was about 17% of all cancers locally, not just in men, but all cancers. So this is a really high number. One report suggested that Jamaica has the highest incidence of prostate cancer in the world. Can you just go back for me, please? And in Jamaica, we can safely say that prostate cancer is about a third of all the cancers diagnosed. So what are the risk factors for developing prostate cancer? Well, if you're black, you're more likely to develop prostate cancer. If you had a family history, that increases significantly because there's some genetic correlation. And if you have a relative, your risk is about twice that of anyone else your age who did not have somebody who in their family had prostate cancer. If you had 2 or more relatives, your risk quadruples. The majority of prostate cancer cases arise in men over the age of 65, 4 out of 5 cases in fact. Less than 1% of men under 50 are diagnosed with the disease, although you can get it in your 30s and 40s, and it tends to be more aggressive in those persons. Obesity increases the likelihood of developing prostate cancer, and it worsens the outcomes in surgery. It's related to diet, where you have a high-fat, high-processed carbohydrate or refined sugar diet being associated with prostate cancer. So how do you screen for prostate cancer? A big part of the problem we have is that the men don't like to get screened. They're worried about the digital rectal examination, but if you have a life expectancy of 10 to 15 years, you should get an annual digital rectal examination and a blood test to check your PSA or prostate-specific antigen. So we have to get past this phobia of having a finger inserted in the rear and get our digital rectal examinations as well as our blood tests. It's not a substitute to get only the blood test because it may miss something that is growing. Screening has proven its efficacy in the United States, with 90% of cancers being diagnosed clinically with localized disease. However, in Jamaica, we only diagnose it in the majority of cases when it has already spread and it is causing major problems. So the PSA is just a blood test that we do to check and see if there's a possibility of a cancer growing. And if we see a level that is higher than normal, which is usually more than 4 nanogram per mil, we do a biopsy, and the biopsy is done through the rectum as well. We take a sample, we send it off and test, and we see if there's any prostate cancer cells there. So how do we prevent prostate cancer? Eat fewer calories, exercise more so you maintain a healthy weight. Try to keep the amount of fat you get from red meat and dairy products to a minimum. Watch your calcium intake. Do not take supplemental doses far above the recommended daily allowance. Eat more fish because you can get good omega-3 fatty acids from these fishes, and avoid trans fats that you would see in substances like margarine. Tomatoes have this chemical called lycopene that when it's cooked, it is actually beneficial, not so much in the raw tomatoes as in the cooked one. Avoid smoking, seek medical attention for stress, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, and depression overall. Studies show that men who report more frequent ejaculations may have a lower risk of developing prostate cancer. You and your partner can discuss how you will be dealing with that risk factor. And of course, importantly, get screened yearly. So now we're talking about money. This is a wealth conference, and we have to put a dollar value to some of these things that I've been talking about. What is the cost of losing your good health? So Jamaican healthcare gives you 3 options. You can pick any 2. Cheap, fast, and good. If you want it cheap and good, it won't be fast. If you want it cheap and good, if you want it cheap and fast, it won't be good. If you want it fast and good, it will not be cheap. Such is the nature of our public health system and our private healthcare system. it costs cash to care. At some point when you get diagnosed with one of these diseases, you're going to be put on medication. The medication cost may not seem like a lot initially, but over time they add up, and then you will need multi-drugs and new drugs that will come in and replace the cheap old generics that are out there. It adds up over time. Bariatric surgery costs significant amount of money, and it is, even though the prices are coming down, that is something that is significant. When you're talking about dialysis, if you're talking about going on a dialysis machine 3 times per week, you're talking about over $100,000 a month just for treatment, plus loss in time. Open heart surgery runs in the millions of dollars. Neurosurgery, over $10 million in some cases, going up to $20 million. After surgery, or after you get a stroke, you need physiotherapy to rehabilitate you. That again costs money because it's best in the private sector. Amputations, losing a limb. The limb itself is not, taking off the limb is not cheap. It is the loss of productivity. It's the prosthesis that are going to cost you the big money. Of course, when you talk about cancer surgery, depending on how complex it is, this can bankrupt families. Cancer surgery is costing the millions of dollars, and then radiation, several $1 million as well. Even though we have good quality radiation machines in the public sector, the waiting list is long. And if you're talking about a time-sensitive cancer, if you're looking at the absolute cost of it, then it's best to go with private treatment. But again, you're talking about millions of dollars. Chemotherapy, as the drugs come in and replace the older ones with more side effects, we're realizing that the cost as well goes up. So you can have a saving plan without insurance, and you can get totally wiped out with the diagnosis of a cancer. It's something that has destroyed a lot of estate planning, and at some point, if you don't have insurance, it is going to be too late for you to be getting insurance that will cover the cost of these treatments. CPAP machines help with breathing in chronic issues with sleep apnea. That costs some money, but the real danger is that the CPAP will the sleep apnea will cause you to put on even more weight and allow you to develop worsening of your conditions. Eye laser surgeries, cataracts, all of these things add up. So every complication has a surgery for it, has drugs for it, has radiation for it, and it is expensive. It adds up. So you can get a diagnosis of a colon cancer, and it can wipe you out $10 million very easily. The true cost, however, is peace of mind and time. Time with your business, time with your loved ones, time doing the things that you really like. And time is invaluable. You cannot put a price on time with those who are dearest to you. So, in summary, we have so many ways today. Some take longer and cost more money. And in planning your estate, in planning your wealth targets, you have to protect your greatest asset, yourself. There are many persons who they have built their businesses and then they're taking out all of that money out of that business to pay doctors' fees and for treatments. They can't, their productivity decreases, they're spending time on dialysis, and with the medications and the side effects and the surgery and the recuperation, then it's just not worth it to chase the dollars and lose your health in the process. And I leave you with this tidbit. Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Willing is not enough. We must do. And that was said by Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Alfred Dawes. He shared with us a very comprehensive presentation, starting with the common diseases that affect Jamaicans. That was in Chapter 1. And Chapter 2 dealt with lifestyle issues. And in Chapter 3, he spoke about the true cost of not being healthy. So much there to learn from Dr. Alfred Dawes. I never tell him, as I say, but me call him the good body doctor for more than one reason. I'm soon tell you why. All right, so we're gonna sit and talk with Dr. Dawes for just a little bit. We're gonna ask him some questions. Remember, send your questions into the chat, whatever you'd like to know. The doctor is in the house, he will answer. And, you know, I have a question myself, right? Okay, you know, say that me do, right? So, if you were listening attentively, paying attention, you would have recalled some statistics that Dr. Dawes shared with us. So, my question is, what percentage of Jamaicans are living with A, diabetes, and B, hypertension? So let me repeat. What percentage of Jamaicans are living with hypertension and diabetes? If you know, real quick, hurry up and answer in the chat. And speaking about chat, our previous winner, I want to say congratulations again. That's Jarangela Lodowika. I did that right. Hey. Talk to me. So Jarangela Lodowika, congratulations. You won yourself a prize from the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. And a member of the team will be in contact with you on how to claim it. All right, we're now going to speak with Dr. Dawes some more. We're going to drill down into his presentation, get a little bit more insight. But before I do that, for those of you who are just joining us, you're inside the Ministry of Finance and the Public Services Wealth Summit, the first summit for 2022 under the theme A New Year and a New Opportunity. And it goes without saying, ladies and gentlemen, you can't capitalize on no opportunity if you don't have your health. So it is your first source of wealth. So just to talk to us about that a little bit more is Dr. Alfred Dawes. He's a general surgeon specializing in bariatrics and laparoscopic surgery. Laparoscopic meaning minimally invasive. Medicine was a natural career choice for Dr. Dawes, and it would see him graduating from the University of the West Indies, Mona in 2004 with a Bachelor of Medicine and a Bachelor of Surgery degree. He specialized in general surgery before moving to subspecializing in laparoscopic surgery and bariatric surgery, and later in liposuction. I want to ask him something about that. Dr. Dawes worked in the public services of Jamaica and the Bahamas for 15 years. After concluding his last posting as Senior Medical Officer at the Savannah Lamar Public General Hospital, he now has his own practices also in Savannah Lamar, which is the Savannah Lamar Medical Center, and in Kingston at the Windsor Wellness Center. He's quite the busy person. He enjoys exploring different sites in Jamaica and traveling around the world to learn about different cultures and reading and writing articles for the local paper. You might have seen some of his articles there. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to have a chat with Dr. Alfred Dawes, the good body doctor. All right, so let me just sit down good now. All right, so you know why I'm calling it, right? All right, first of all, the body good also. But number two is that you help the ladies to get a good body, right? So you take off all that laparoscopic story, right? And farm them out nice and neat. Now, from your experience, you spoke about it in your presentation, but why is it that we are not more health-seeking as a society?
It goes back to tradition. So when we were on the plantations, we never really had a healthcare system for the slaves. They were treated in what were called hot houses by persons who knew African herbal medicine. And so we learned to boil our bush teas, we learned to watch things until it went away. And it wasn't really until KPH was established in the 1700s that we started to have some sort of health care.
Interesting.
And, 1800s. And the problem is that we are still a little bit reluctant to go to the hospital. And this is worst in males compared to females. Sometimes when a man comes in to see you and the disease is far gone, it's because a woman has dragged them there.
Yes.
One of the observations I noticed in surgery is that we would take off more toes. We would amputate more toes of females. For the males, we'll be amputating more legs. And it's a simple reason. The females would come when it was a little ulcer on the toe. The men would be there bathing it in peroxide and honey and black dressing and whatever it is until the infection spread and the gangrene was really bad. Same thing with prostate cancer. When prostate cancer presents, it is at an advanced stage because we just don't believe in screening. So it's cultural. We tend to use too much herbal treatments on our own. With some of it works. I'm not knocking it, but it's not everything that's going to work for every particular condition. The other thing is that we don't like to take medicines. That's just it. Hypertension,
like
some men don't want to take it because it's going to affect their manhood.
Yes.
And everything, it might affect their manhood, so they're not going to do that. And of course, with the screening for prostate cancer, they don't want anybody to do the digital rectal examination, so they're not coming.
Right.
For women, cervical cancer is still a problem, even though pap smears are so readily available. Breast cancer, the funny thing is that even professional women who you think would know better, they sit and watch lumps. And I think it's willful blindness. They don't want to get that diagnosis that it is breast cancer and they're going to cut off their breast.
So you don't think so it's because the people are busy, doctor? Like genuinely,
you can't be too busy for your health.
Busy man.
Look, if you make all of that money, you're going to spend it all back just trying to stay alive. When COVID hit, all the people who had private jets flew to Miami to take the vaccine, Nobody wants to die. And if they can spend money to avoid dying or decrease the chance of dying, they will spend it. But why not do it when it is way cheaper? If you're going to be doing screening, a mammogram is maybe about $3,000. Versus doing complex breast surgery that's going to run you about 800,000, radiation 3 million, chemotherapy another couple million. Again, it is prevention is cheaper than a cure, and we have to get into the habit of focusing on screening. We can't just rely on the public health sector because the public health sector doesn't even have a mammogram that's working right now.
Right.
To get a colonoscopy, endoscopy, and those things in screening for gastric and colon cancer, the waiting list is very long.
Yes.
So if we are looking, and I'd probably pitch this to Javed if he's still around, we get screening centers across the island that can make screening affordable. We'll be saving thousands of lives every year.
You're pitching right now, doctor.
I'm going to give him an
elevator pitch. Right.
So we need to bring screening to the people because you can't be walking around not knowing that your blood pressure is 200 over 120. Your blood sugars are high and you're peeing a lot, but you just think it's because you're drinking too much water. And the heart disease, you're getting tired easy, your legs are swelling, it was just poor circulation and you're sapping it with bay rum. We need to move away from that because what is differentiating us now from the developed world, as I pointed out, is not that we have more disease than them, is that our disease is worse and we're dying more than they are.
Right.
And it's because they're intervening at an earlier stage. And we need to change that as a country.
Right. So I might infer from what you just shared that unhealthiness is more prevalent in men than it is in women because women are generally more health seeking than men. All right, guys, that's something that you have to pay attention to. All right, if there is an issue, try to address it early. Don't wait till the foot have a cut off the toe, but not the foot. All right, so Dr. Dawes, from your vantage point, you have expansive experience. You were in the public sector, and you now have your private medical practice. So let me talk about the people who are doing working really hard to become wealthy, and in whatever way, whatever shape that takes, right? At what point do they come in when they're sick? What do they say? What do they share? What is the reality of somebody who's working very hard, have a very good reason, they're working to send their children to school, a better family life? What are some of the reasons why they have neglected their health, from your experience?
We take it for granted. Cow never know the use of him tail until fly take him.
Right.
We are just going around doing our own thing. We're not feeling the effects that are taking place inside of our body. It is usually when an event manifests itself, some chest pain, they get scared, or maybe the weight comes on to a point where their knees start to hurt, or they can't move around, or somebody says something to them. That is when they usually wake up. But by that time, serious damage has been done. But the problem is that we spend so much time chasing our dreams that we forget to take care of ourselves. And then when we finally get to actualize those dreams, we have no use for it because our bodies have been run ragged in trying to get there. And what's the point? We have to stop and smell the roses, we have to enjoy life a little bit, we have to de-stress, and we have to work to maintain our bodies to a point where when we are 60 and 70, going into retirement, we're not decrepit and can't move around and can't really enjoy it. We should be able to be seeing the world, spending time with grandchildren and other relatives and friends, because in the twilight of your years, time becomes more precious. But if you're spending that time in and out of hospitals, treatment, dialysis, surgery, drugged up on medication, how much can you really do?
How often do you see this reality?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day. Every day. Persons come in, they get a wake-up call, and that is when you're trying to reverse decades of damage. And sometimes you can't. I mean, it's sad, but I had one gentleman who had come in for workup for bariatric surgery, and it was while he was in the workup that he found out that he had heart problems, and he died even before he got to surgery.
Just for our viewers, what is bariatric surgery?
So bariatric surgery essentially is a weight loss procedures that involve reducing the size of the stomach or rerouting the direction that food takes, so you eat less and absorb less, and with that you can get significant weight loss, 80 pounds, 150, 200 pounds, thereabouts. So it's life-changing, and that to me is the most rewarding part of my practice.
Yes.
When I see the impact that it has on people's lives.
Okay. So, so doctor, in a word, as we have said, you can get wealthy by ignoring your health, but you will get unwealthy by addressing your health. Correct enough?
Correct enough, and you're going with your wealth is just going to be transferred to
your
others, to others who are making their own wealth off your lack of health.
You can imagine?
That's a sad reality.
So, what would you? I mean, the evidence is clear. The evidence is clear. You've laid it out for us, but for the typical person, you touched on it in your presentation. But give us the brass tacks. I would say a country. What is the real cost for a person? The cost of maintaining your health for a person with diabetes, hypertension, an annual cost. You were giving some ideas of how much you'd spend on medication and so on, but lay it down for me. Really simple now. How much money we're gonna spend a year if we have diabetes, if we have hypertension, if we're overweight?
Well, one of the greatest institutions ever to have been started in this country is the National Health Fund.
Yes.
And with the National Health Fund, it took away the burden of buying a lot of these medications from the persons who needed them most. So they just pay the prescription fee and they get the medication free.
Right.
Outside of that, you have medications that are running anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 per month. If you're on insulin and you're supposed to pay the true cost of insulin, the better ones are going to run you near to $30,000
per month.
Now, when you look at the complications, that is where the big bucks are spent. Because should you need a stent in your heart, you know, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million.
What?
Open heart surgery, 10, 15 million.
What?
For strokes, significant. The
15
millions.
million?
And you're talking about recuperation, hospital fees, physiotherapy, all of these things. Dialysis, $60,000 a week in some instances if you're doing it the right way.
And dialysis is weekly. Yes.
It's weekly. And then what some people do, because they can't afford that, they don't go the full time. So they accept a little poison in their blood to save a little money.
Wow.
And that is very unfortunate.
Wow.
Radiation. If you
for cancer treatment.
For cancer treatment, you're talking about $3 to $5 million. It's not cheap.
Did you hear what I just heard?
So this can wipe out anybody's retirement plan. If you're a pensioner, forget about it. You have to join the long line at the public hospitals.
Yes.
And the problem is with the disruptions with COVID, we have this long waiting list right now. And so it's hard to put a figure as to what the cost might be, because you might be somebody who survives on just taking the medication alone. But should you get a complication, that can totally wipe you out completely.
Wow. Wow. I don't know if you are like me, I'm just totally astonished at the realities that Dr. Dawes has just presented regarding the cost of healthcare and maintaining your health. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, by the callaloo, by the pak chow, by the tomato, but not lie, drink your water, cause God know, 50 million for your heart, me don't know about you. Eat the callaloo, please. Eat the fruits, them. Go market by the fruits, them. $10 a pound. No, yam, $200 a pound. God know it better. But not lie. Doctor Dawes, me don't know. Water for we. Water. She's not afraid. Please take care of your health. It is your first source of wealth. So Dr. Dawes, as we wrap up our conversation, what is your final word to Jamaicans? Let we clear and fast, quick and fast, plain and straight, as would I say.
Quick and fast, it's better, it's cheaper for you to get screened and avoid getting the disease rather than spending it on people like me who are here to help you get better.
Yeah, because your body look good enough. You understand? You know what I mean? Me come here and practice.
I have to exercise.
No, me come here and practice now and say, watch me have to pay you $15,000. You know, and after me gone back, go lie down, go take pill. You are drive around Jamaica. You understand? It's not fair. But that is the reality.
That is the
if
reality.
We don't take care of ourselves.
The health industry right now is just geared at treating symptoms, is not aiming to cure you. So just don't develop it in the first place. That is a plain raw and truth. It has been, Big Pharma has corrupted the whole thing.
Yes.
And it's best for you just to avoid getting sick.
All right. I think that is a perfect note on which to end our discussion with Dr. Alfred Dawes of Windsor Medical Center. Avoid getting sick as far as possible. Take care of your health. It is your first source of wealth. Now, I did ask a question to social media. Dr. Dawes, you might be interested to learn who the winner is. So we asked, what are your... No, that's not what we asked. We asked, what percentage of Jamaicans have diabetes and hypertension? And Kerry Ann Ellis Salmon, she's watching on Zoom, Minister of Finance. You are the winner. You got that question, you got the answer correct. It is 12% diabetes, am I right?
Yes.
And 13% hypertension. Is that?
33.
33% hypertension. So Kerry Ann Ellis Salmon watching on Zoom, the Minister of Finance's Zoom broadcast. You are the winner. A member of the team from the Ministry of Finance will contact you on how to claim your prize. Thank you so much and congratulations. As we say, thank you again, Dr. Dawes, for joining us and just giving us a plain born truth.
It's a pleasure.
I don't know, I not pay $50 million for no surgery. I buy callaloo. Man, no, I drink juice, I drink coconut water. One jelly at $200. I not lie.
Wash out your heart.
Wash off my heart. Oh gosh. Thank you so much, Dr. Alfred Dawes. All right, we continue the discussion today on the new opportunities that 2022 will present. And if you were listening earlier, Kalila Reynolds of Kalila Ray Media, she shared 3 keys of wealth. 1, entrepreneurship. 2, investment in the stock market. And 3, real estate. All right, so we're going to talk some more about real estate as an opportunity for wealth, and there is no other person qualified to speak to it than our next presenter. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alison Morgan. She is Senior Manager for Sales and Business Support at VM Property Services. Alison will speak with us about real estate investing.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, MOFPS, for having the Victoria Mutual Group here. We are delighted to share in this wonderful summit today. And following up on the introduction, she spoke about Kalia mentioning that the best ways to get wealthy or to keep it is really to invest in a couple of things, and at Victoria Mutual Group we have 2 of those things. The stock market and real estate is really the preferred way to ensure that you can acquire wealth. It's the safest way. You know, it's been around forever, and we know that it's proven and it's tried. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme, and it works, and it really transforms your life. So let's talk about how we can get you to acquire real estate today. So I'm going to start out with a prize, and I'm making sure that I give a really, really good prize. So between Anna and Sophia, we need to have a wonderful prize for persons, because I know it's after 1. And between you and lunch, you know, they put me last, but it's fine, because I know that what I'm going to share today is going to be even more fulfilling than any lunch that you could actually get. It's going to last for a really long time. It's not going to keep you sated for just 3 hours. I'm giving you lifetime knowledge. So we're starting with a question. So you'll see some images on your screen, right? So there's 4 of them. And for persons who aren't as old as I am, let me just walk you through what they are. There's a BlackBerry phone. There is a Dandy Shandy, that was actually a drink in Jamaica. And then there's a picture of a plot of land, and we have a fax machine. So here's the question, and I need to make sure that you guys answer in the chat. What do these things have in common? All right, so the advisors watching the chat will let me know when we have an answer. So I'm giving you 3 seconds. Tell me, what do these things have in common that you're seeing on your screen right now? So a wonderful prize, courtesy of the Victoria Mutual Group, if you can respond accurately to that. So let's count it down. 1, 2, 3. So this is not the elevator pitch for 30 seconds. This is just 3 seconds, right? Because you were listening to Javed earlier. All right. Do we have any takers? Do we have any guesses, any answers? Anybody attempting? All right. We have? It's a common theme. So for all 4 pictures, it's one theme. All right, kudos. So the creative juices are flowing. So I'm actually happy at the variety of responses, because it means I have your full attention right before lunch, so I'm grateful. So the closest one to it is outdated, but the real answer is this. These things aren't being made anymore. None of them. So the BlackBerry is not being manufactured, the Dandy Shandy is not being manufactured, the fax machine, and guess what else is not being made anymore? Land. So that takes us into the gist of the presentation, why you need to acquire real estate and why I need to acquire it now. Because the truth is, the best investment on earth is earth. So let's get right to it. So why real estate? We already spoke about how important it is to get real estate, because it's the fastest vehicle to achieving wealth. It's the safest, minimal risk if done properly under the guidance of experts. Real estate gives several benefits. It appreciates in value. The return on earnings are absolutely phenomenal. And Jamaica does not currently have a capital gains tax from a personal perspective. So if the house increases, you don't have to file tax returns on that. So you can enjoy your equity, tap into it, and don't have to worry about that. Oftentimes when I give these presentations, persons don't understand what I'm saying in terms of appreciating value. So I like to break it down, you know, so it's relatable. A lot of persons are familiar with Caribbean Estates, the development in Portmore, St. Catherine. When Caribbean Estates was being developed and being launched, I think it was 2005, I was actually at the Portmore branch of the VM Building Society at the time. I was working at that location. And I remember that we partnered with the developers to host an open house session workshop at the Portmore Heart Academy. And it made an indelible print on me as to the cost of these properties, and they came out for under $5 million. So different types of units would range from about $3.5 million to $5 million. And you can actually Google it and you can see it there. So this was the starting price for the house in circa 2005. I'm a practicing realtor, and last year sold a Caribbean estate house for $20 million. Well, 2020, not last year. I forgot that we transitioned. So in 2020, I sold a Caribbean estate house for $20 million. The difference is $15 million over 15 years. Now, if you do the math, you'll recognize that there's absolutely no other investment that you could have put that money in to get a return of $1 million. Whilst you had it holding, it was unrealized gains, but the moment you sold it, the equity became yours. Nothing else will give that amount of return in a safe manner, so you know you don't have to worry about it. This unit had no improvements, no structural changes. It was the initial unit that the person bought from 2005 that they sold. Now, when I tell you about return on earnings, nothing beats that. So that's, if you wanted more reason to know why to invest in real estate, there you go. So how do you acquire real estate? So this is always a challenge because most of my clients will say, I start to buy the Sunday Gleaner and I'm looking in the classifieds, right? And they go on every single realtor website, every brokerage house that you have, and they send a plethora of requests. I'm interested in this property. They follow all the realtors on Instagram. They're constantly looking at for sale sign, and they're driving around on the weekends and they're writing down all the numbers and they're calling everybody. And that's the first thing that they do. Guess what? You're doing the opposite of how you ought to do it. So the first step to acquiring real estate is not really to start the home ownership search or the property search. You're actually to start with speaking to the experts. Naturally, at the Victoria Mutual Group, I mean, we've been around for quite a while, so we know what we're doing, right? Over 140 years. So you're going to start first by engaging a professional realtor, a professional credit officer, a professional financial advisor from VM Wealth. Talk to someone to understand how you start this journey. You do not start the journey by looking for the house first, okay? So I'm going to walk you through that quickly. So how can you invest in real estate? So actually there's two ways, and for most persons, they can't just get up today and decide that I'm going to buy a property tomorrow. You really need a roadmap and you need a plan. So you can invest individually by yourself, meaning family members or you alone, your spouse, whatever it is, or you can invest collectively through a unit trust property fund. So what's the difference? You can actually do both. The collective investment is where, when you're saving towards the individual ownership of real estate, you can partake in mutuality of pooling funds and getting higher returns on it. So the collective investment is referring to a unit trust real estate index fund. So I'm going to tell you about that now on the next slide. So you look at the screen and you'll see the examples of the VM Wealth Classic Property Portfolio. So I'm not coming to peddle products to you here. I'm showing you a real vehicle that you can use to get your money to earn more money for you in a faster manner. The interest rate and the returns that you get on the unit trust portfolio is greater than any that you could actually get if you're doing it individually. So whilst you're saving small amounts per month, once you reach that minimum amount, you can actually put it in the unit trust property fund until you are ready to move to the other stage of acquiring real estate, which is the individual stage. So in this unit trust, what you're doing is saving up for your closing costs and your opening costs, and we'll talk about those next. So the individual investment, steps to property ownership. 4 quick steps, right? Pre-qualification, save, search, secure, and I'm going to take you through each of them briefly. So we have a diagram here with a little confused man, and this man represents most of the persons that reach out to us at Victoria Mutual saying, I want a house. And one of the first things I want you to do on this journey for acquiring real estate is to adjust your mindset. So following on what Dr. Dawes spoke about earlier, that you need a healthy body, you need a healthy mind because it can wipe out everything that you've saved. You also have to ensure that mentally you prepare yourself for the journey. It's not difficult, but it could be off-putting if you're not guided properly and you don't have the full knowledge so you can understand. A lot of persons, they're so close to acquiring real estate and one thing happens and it just deters them and they just say, you know, I can't bother. If it is that you arm yourself with knowledge ahead of time, the probability of success greatly increases. So that's what we want to do, to give you the knowledge so you can prepare. So if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, right? So looking at the screen, you see a lot of jargons there. You see some terminologies. And these are things that I encourage persons to read about, speak to the experts at VM, so you can get the understanding and the information about it. So let me pull one from there. And it's not all bad, you know. These are things that actually can help you and help you faster if you understand it. So for example, let's take the top triangle, CRTD. What is that, Alison? Oh God, there's so many acronyms, LTV and NHT and DSR and I can't bother, I'm just going to buy a lotto. No, you will not, right? So you're going to learn about these things. So CRTD. CRTD is an acronym that stands for Contribution Refund Towards Deposit. Let me say it again. Contributions Refund Towards Deposit. This is actually a benefit that you can access via the National Housing Trust if you are an active contributor. How does this benefit you? If you have been contributing in excess of 7 years, then you know that come the beginning of each year, you can actually tap into the NHT and get back your refund. So I think now they're probably giving back refund for 2014, right? Help me with the math. If you're ready to purchase real estate and you do not have all the money towards your deposit, guess what? The NHT actually has an option for you to access your 7 years return before they are due. And they will give you this as a collective lump sum. So if you wanted to buy real estate now in 2022, you could access 2015, 16, 17, right up to 2021, you could actually access it towards your deposit. Isn't that great? No, that's something that you probably never knew before because you have this mental block against mortgages and it's just so complicated. It's not. DSR, let's take another one from there. DSR stands for debt service ratio. And this is something that is going to be paramount for you to get a mortgage if you're purchasing real estate with a mortgage. And 93% of the sales in Jamaica are done via mortgage financing. So unless you are gifted to be able to have cash resources, you will require a mortgage. So a debt service ratio calculation, it's something that you need to know about and understand. Audited financials. We have more self-employed persons in Jamaica than we have employed. And the bane of self-employed persons' existence or blockage in getting a mortgage is that they do not have proper financial records. They don't have documents. They don't understand that you need to have at least 2 years worth of audited financial statements or records that we can look up, bank statements, cash flow, customer inventory, logs, receivables. They don't fully grasp this. And then when they find the house after driving around on the Sunday, they come to you, they have the deposit, they have the closing costs, but they do not have the records to show us that they can actually afford the mortgage. So this is why information ahead of time is absolutely critical, right? So let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So we spoke about the steps. So the first step was the pre-qualification, and we spoke about that, where you'll sit with the person at Victoria Mutual, you take all your records, and they're going to assess exactly how much you can borrow, put you on the path to start saving. So once you've had that discussion, they'll say to you, okay, you'll be able to get mortgage financing from us, all things being equal, based on the information that you presented, to the tune of $35 million. So you now know that, okay, I can afford a property for up to $35 million. What else do I need to do? This is now the second step. You will need to have some funds to put towards the purchase of acquiring the real estate. We refer to these as your opening and your closing cost. Your opening cost is really your deposit, and it ranges from about 5 to 10%. So you want to be able to save for this amount for about 2 to 5 years, ideally, before you are ready to actually make the big move to get the real estate. Then your closing costs will run you about another 5 to 12%. The reason for the range and the variation in the range is that it depends on the type of property that you're purchasing and your own personal situation. So let's say, for example, the reason for the difference between the deposit amount. Why 5% to 15%, Alison? Well, If you're purchasing into a scheme that is being built by a developer, a Wiccan, a Gore, a Chemtech, for example, they usually ask for only 5% deposit. So 5% of 14 million, 5% of 12 million, that's what you're required to pay for them. If you're purchasing a home on the open market, the deposit will probably be about 10%. If you're purchasing land, vacant lot, then the deposit is going to be higher because the financial institutions, including Victoria Mutual, naturally ask you to put a little bit more towards the deposit than they would ask if you're buying a structure that is habitable. And if you're going to the route of commercial, let's say you're trying to buy a little shop so you can do your hairdressing or your nail business or your flower making business, whatever it is, then that's a commercial loan, so you'd probably have to input 20%. So that's the reason why you need to understand ahead of time, before you make this transition to get real estate, what you need to do to prepare yourself properly. So to recap quickly, you'll need to save for the opening costs, which is the deposit, and you'll need to save for the closing costs, which covers plethora of expenses, sale agreement, valuation, stamp duty, registration, processing fees, a credit report. If you're building, you're going to have to get an engineer's report. You're going to have to get a quantity surveyor's report. You need to get the architect to draft up your plans. So there's a whole slew of things, and it's all dependent on your individual circumstances. So there's not a checklist that we can take and give everyone and say, here's a checklist for you. But we're here for you to come and speak to us, and then we can give you your tailored roadmap to get you to home ownership. So the third step is search. So we told you about the pre-qual, right? You speak, you find out what you can afford, then we'll work through the savings so you know what is the 10% that I need to save for the opening costs, what is the 10% I need to save for the closing costs. So now you're ready to search for the property. This is the fun part. This is the part that you started initially that you really should have waited until we are here at this stage. So you start to search by making sure you speak with a realtor. Why do you need a realtor? Because the realtor is going to be your guiding light and your guiding hands in acquiring real estate. What we find with persons looking to buy property is that they see it through rose-colored glasses, and they see stars in their eyes, and they just see the beauty of the property, and they don't look up and see that the eaves, the eaves are going, and that the property needs termite treatment, or that this place floods. So they have a wealth of industrial experience that you need to tap into. So they'll guide you to make sure that you're making the right decision. And guess what? There is absolutely no cost to you, the purchaser, to use a realtor. The realtor doesn't get paid from you. They get paid from the seller. So it's always better for you to use it. It's a free service. Why not tap into free experience? So you're going to look for the property. You want to make sure it suits you for more reasons than one. You're going to be realistic with your search. You're going to consider, is it near school for my children? If you have elderly parents, how accessible is it? Are you planning something for your later years? So, if you have bad foot or knee problem like me, you're thinking about a one-story for later on in life, because these knees are not made for walking and they're not going to go up 2 flights of stairs, right? So this is why you need guidance of a realtor to tell you these kind of things. So we want to make sure you make the right investment. Purchasing real estate is a big deal. It's not something that you can change your mind 6 months after and say you don't want to do this. You would have already put in so much money, the sunken cost, that you can't recover, because whilst it increases in value, it takes a while for you to be able to get back your equity, as with the example I told you earlier with Caribbean Estates, right? So you don't want to have any buyer's remorse with real estate. So tap into an expert to guide you. You could do it on your own, but I say, hey, if you think it's expensive to use a professional, wait until you use an amateur. You're going to be sorry. So let's use the professionals here. All right? And the final stage is to secure the property. So you pre-qual, you save, you search, now you're going to secure the property. The realtor would have helped you and guided you. You've landed on the process. Your offer was accepted because you have a pre-qualification letter which already puts you miles ahead of everybody else that doesn't have one. Sellers and realtors and brokerage houses and other persons really take you serious when you can show proof of purchase. And if you've been, following the real estate market, you will find that there's a little quote that a lot of persons put up. They say, "Viewing is reserved for applicants with proof of purchasing ability," meaning you have to show me that you can afford it before I'll even let you come to see the premises. So this is what your pre-qualification does. It literally opens doors for you to go in. So once you've passed that stage now, you're going to secure the property by getting the mortgage, and you are going to speak with the experts at VMBS, which is the Building Society of the Victoria Mutual Group, and they'll help you to navigate the mortgage process. So the mortgage process can be summarized in 4 quick steps. Application for the mortgage, and this is building on the pre-qualification that you would have completed previously, maybe a year before, 6 months, whatever it is. You can always revisit it and get it refreshed if your personal circumstances change. Acceptance of the mortgage, once we underwrite and we make sure that the property is good, we'll do our due diligence, you'll tap into the expertise, we'll tell you what you need to do if there's anything that you need to adjust, any breaches of covenants, we'll give you all of that guidance. And then we go to the registration. This is where the property is being transferred from the previous owner to you, and this is executed by the Titles Office, Stamp Office of the National Land Agency. And the final stage is once your name is now on the title, you are now a property owner. Congratulations, yay! We go to disbursement. So the information will come to Victoria Mutual and say, hey, pay for this because Anna has now bought lot 15 Chateau Smith and she's ready to move in, and then you'll get your keys. So it's not as difficult as a lot of persons think. It can be demystified. I also thought it was difficult when I started this journey years ago, but now I take pleasure in showing persons how it can actually happen and how it works for you. And one of the best feelings ever is to get that key in your hand, to own your little piece of the rock. It's amazing. So I'm hoping that you would have learned some stuff on what to do to prepare for home ownership. But before I leave, I've told you what to do, right? So guess what? There's a what not to do as well. And I could not come here and not tell you these pitfalls to avoid. So I call them my 10 commandments. And you can look at them and you're probably laughing about it, but it's very important. It's critical that you don't do these things whilst actively in the search to acquire real estate. So let's run through quickly. Number 1, thou shalt not, remember these are my commandments, right? So thou shalt not change jobs. Thou shalt not become self-employed or quit your job if you are really, really close to doing the real estate. So I don't recommend any of these changes within a year of you trying to get real estate. If it is inevitable and you must do this change, then you might have to delay the real estate purchase. So in your own personal circumstances, you will have to assess and decide what is best for you. And the reasons why we say don't change jobs, for example, you have to wait for confirmation. Most employers now ask for 6 months. No person is going to wait for 6 months for you to be confirmed in the job. And we can't give you the mortgage if your situation is not confirmed. If you're self-employed, and I mentioned this earlier, then we need at least 2 years worth of financial records and financial statements. And if you're a larger SME, then we're going to need audited financials, balance sheet, T&L, all of those things. So you don't want to go that route, right? So keep it on a steady pace as much as possible until you've acquired the real estate. Number 2, thou shalt not buy a truck, a car, a van, or a vehicle unless you plan to live in it. Because when we assessed you before at the pre-qualification stage, we knew all your assets. We arrived at your net worth. We knew what your debt service ratio was, and you didn't pass the ratio. So you could get the mortgage for the 35 million. You now went and you took out a new loan to buy a 2022 vehicle because it's on sale and it looked nice and you just want to change a vehicle. Nothing wrong with the old one, but you change it. So where you didn't have a car payment before, you now have one, which impacts your debt service ratio. So please do not do that. After we've assessed you for the pre-qualification, keep things as constant as possible. The third commandment, do not use your credit cards excessively. Do not take out unnecessary credit, period. Jamaica has now subscribed, well, not now, for about 10 years now, we have adopted a credit scoring system. We actually have 2 active and visible credit unions in Jamaica. We have CRIF, NM, and Credit Info, and you can log on to their websites, get information, access your free credit report. Every Jamaican is entitled to a free credit report once per year. So make sure you get that, know where you stand, see if there's anything on there that you need to address. Some resolutions can actually take months. And, you know, one of the sad things that I've encountered whilst doing my job is persons are ready to go, and then when we pull the credit report, there's a surprise that they didn't remember. Sometimes it's personal, meaning they knew of a credit facility and they kind of left it because it's so long ago, didn't know it would show up, or they found themselves in an unfavorable situation because of errors, identity theft, or because they signed with someone before. So understand credit, use it wisely. Many different things affect your credit score, the number of facilities that you have. So for example, the more credit cards you have, it impacts it, right? And not in a favorable way. The more you use it, so the percentage, how much you pay per month on your credit facilities, things like that. So you can read up on this on VM's website, also on CRIF and Credit Info's website. So use credit wisely. Number 4, do not spend the money that you have set aside for the opening and the closing cost. Let me repeat. Do not spend the money that we've set aside. So you're saving up and you have it, but then somebody tell you that, oh, we're going to go to Ochi for the weekend because Hero's coming up, and you take out a 300,000 or 200,000 to pay for the hotel. But then when you come back, your realtor call you and say, guess what? A house open up. It's where you want it. It's right near the kids' school. Let's get your pre-qual because we're now going to submit an offer. And we also need proof of the opening cost because you must send that in with the offer. And then you stutter, you go because you took out the money. Don't touch the money. Please do not touch the money. It's there for a particular reason. You don't know when the opportunity will come up, and you will need to present this as proof to be able to pay for the property, right? The 5th one, do not omit debts and liabilities from your loan application. It will show up. Please don't lie about it, right? So again, I have another mantra that I always say to persons. You know what they say, don't lie to your doctor, so you're not going to lie to doctor does, right? Do not lie to your doctor. Do not lie to your attorney. And please do not lie to your banker, right? Tell us everything. We need to know. Let's find a solution. It's all solvable. It's workable. But let's just minimize the surprises because the diagnosis could actually be to your detriment. 6, do not take out furniture on credit, and I do not need to elaborate anymore on that. Just avoid credit, period, while we're looking to get the house. 7th commandment, do not originate any inquiries into your credit. So this is another thing that actually lowers your credit score, and it shows us that you're shopping around for credit more than likely to finance your lifestyle. So when we request your credit report, it actually shows us in the last 12 months every single institution that would have made a request on your credit with the possibility of extending financing for one reason or another. So try to avoid it as best as possible. And this is where the benefit of accessing your free annual credit report comes in, so you get the same information, right? 8, please do not make a deposit on the house without speaking with your loans officer or your realtor. Please do not pay any money to the person that is selling it. When you're looking about real estate, always consult your realtor. They will guide you on what to do. We've seen persons pay down on real estate that the person selling does not own. The person selling rented the property. The person selling has an estate matter that is not even probated. The person selling has a common law title or no title. There are so many things. So please do not do this. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to trust the experts, okay? 9, do not change your bank accounts, particularly if you're self-employed, because we need to see historical data. And if your salary goes there, we also need to see that. So please don't change it. And 10, do not co-sign a loan with anyone. Let me lean in so you can understand this one very clearly. Do not co-sign for a loan with anyone. You know what? This becomes your loan. This now has to be calculated in your debt service ratio. So before, when we assessed you in January and you could afford a $35 million house and you could afford the monthly payment for $100,000, when you go and you co-sign with somebody, for example, the Student Loan Bureau for $40,000, that's what they'll be paying back. That becomes your debt. Type in the chat for me, Ministry of Finance, significant. Type the word significant for me in the chat. S-I-G-N-I-F-I-C-A-N-T. Significant. It's not spelling bee. You see that word? Or significant others. A lot of people use it. And I'm not bashing anybody. Clearly, I'm not bashing anybody because we all have a significant other, right? You see, if you separate it, you know what it says? Sign if I can't. No. No. And no again. It doesn't mean sign if I can't. You hear it? So please do not sign a loan for anyone whilst you are trying to acquire real estate. It's not going to be to your benefit at all. So I'm hoping that I would have given you some tips today to help you to understand why you need to acquire real estate. You know, they say buy land, they're not making it anymore. We need to hurry up, and the only worst time to buy real estate is later. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope I was worth the wait before lunch. Forgot that I have a
Alison Morgan, you certainly was worth the wait. Ladies and gentlemen, the lady read you out of church the 10 commandments. I'm not lying. Read me right out of church. The 10th commandment, do not co-sign for anyone, even your significant other. We're going to talk to Alison Morgan in a few minutes so she can expound on her presentation and she can answer a question. I have a very long question for you. Alison, prepare yourself. Obviously, they weren't at lunch. They were listening very attentively. Okay, but ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, if somebody just sent you the link and you just open it and you see 2 ladies on the screen, you know what I mean? You are inside the Ministry of Finance and Public Services Wealth Summit, the first one for 2022. We're talking about the new year and new opportunities. At this point, you'd have missed a slew of presenters who really come to the things. Just before Alison Morgan, who just presented, was Dr. Alfred Dawes. Before him was Javette Nixon. Before him, Kalila Reynolds. Before her, Honorable Marcia Smith, State Minister in the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. We're going to chat now with Alison Morgan of VM Property Management. But before we do that, let me ask you what I need to ask you. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So we're giving away things here. Yeah. The Ministry of Finance is giving away things. Yeah, Mr. Clark, Nigel Clark, can pay for this personally. A joke. I'm not watching and say, what? No. All right. The question is, what are the 3 main reasons for investing in real estate? Pretty simple, right? For those of us who were listening in through lunch, you know, say I have a chicken in a one, and I said, Jesus, what you say? I take out the chicken and I said, no, sir. The lady I taught the things. I hope you were listening very attentively. All right, what are the 3 main reasons for investing in real estate? If you answer that for me correctly, a member of the Ministry of Finance team will be in contact with you with a nice little prize. You know what I mean? Oh, yes, the government not give you nothing. All right, let me introduce Alison Morgan before we speak with her so you can know that she not talk out her teeth is her whole mouth. Alison Morgan is the Senior Manager of Sales and Business Support at VM Property Services. That's Victoria Mutual Property Services, the real estate arm of the VM Group. In this role, she drives the business development activities for the real estate sales and rentals and valuations unit. Additionally, she has oversight for the property management unit and assists with capital project management. She has served the VM Group over 20 years, having a breadth of experience in loan and credit management, as was evident, and mortgage origination and underwriting, financial analysis, and project and facilities management. Alison is a firm believer in continuous learning, and I suppose that's why she's here today. And in addition to her undergraduate and master's degrees in banking and finance and business administration, respectively, she has a certification in change management from the Prosky Association organization in Canada, and a postgraduate certificate in management studies from the Harvard University. She is a certified events and logistics manager and a practicing realtor and a member of the Realtors Association of Jamaica. We join Alison now for a further discussion on how to buy real estate.
Yes.
All right, so Alison, let me just start with the question that we got from social media.
Okay.
All right, say it long,
I'll try my best.
All right. How can one go about purchasing a lot with a building structure that needs some work before you can live in the house? Is this applicable, or will there be a complete percentage required? I suspect that means full payment.
Full payment,
yeah.
Okay. So it is possible. Firstly, yes. It's just which avenue we're going to take to make it possible. So if the structure is extremely dilapidated and you're not interested in getting that particular structure renovated or fixed, like you would like to eliminate it totally, then what you can do is use the mortgage to acquire the property as a land-only purchase. So I would have spoken about that before. So in this instance, you would need a little bit more of the opening cost for the deposit. We usually ask for about 15% for land only.
Right.
Now remember, in real estate, the land has a value separate from the building itself.
So when we buy a house, we're buying land and building?
We're buying land and building. So the total value is known as the market value. But the valuation will break it down to tell you what the land is worth and what the structure is worth.
Yes.
So in this particular case, it could be that what the person is intending to purchase this property for, there is enough equity in the land that we could give you a loan to say 85% financing, and you don't have to actually target buying the structure as yet. Later on, if you wanted to and you totally demolish the building, you could actually access a building loan, and then we'll give you another mortgage subject to affordability to actually construct the house that you want to on the property. Okay, so let me just get that straight. So we're buying land and building. Yes. But you can give me a mortgage to first buy the land portion of the value. With the dilapidated structure. With the dilapidated structure. Not using that structure as a security. As security. Just the land. Just the land. Yes. All right, so in simple terms, if it is that the property, land and building is 20 million and the land values 15 million, the dilapidated structure is 5 million. You can give me up to 85% of the 15 million, right. And then I can proceed to purchase the building of 5 million. No, you won't proceed to purchase the building. So chances of the building is not in a good condition. Right. The price will be adjusted to not take that into consideration because it's not habitable. Right. So let's say the owner says, okay, because the building is in such a deplorable condition, we're going to sell you this property, total property, we're going to sell you for $17 million. I see. Right. So if the land is worth 15, we'll give you the mortgage on the 15, and then the difference is what you'll need to come up with out of pocket, aka the opening cost. Okay. There you go. The lady saying if you spend opening money. Yes. You see Valentine's and next week Monday, nobody go to hotel if you need to buy a property. Tell her stay. You need to put her somewhere to live. Don't spend the money. Right. All right. That is with number commandment.
At about 4.
Number 4, do not
The fourth
stretch your
command. I was
capacity.
like,
Yes.
what you mind? I want you to and say, Jesus, peace, and look how me just like spending money.
No, man, there are other ways to express your love in her.
Right.
Lots of other ways. Cook for her or something, man.
Buy her house,
Yeah,
but
buy
don't
her
spend the
house.
closing costs. All right. Alison, does VM offer 100% financing?
In certain circumstances, we do.
And what are those?
We actually have a targeted mortgage now for self-employed persons because we recognize that it's usually a little harder for self-employed persons to, qualify, etc. They don't have a constant source of income.
Yes.
So once you meet the requirements and these conditions are on our website, you can speak to one of our financial services specialists. If you're self-employed, up to a certain amount, I think it's $15 million, we will actually give you 100% to buy into the property that you're looking for. And if you're not self-employed, we come pretty close. We go up to 97%.
97?
97. So we go 80, 85, 90, 95, 97.
Okay.
The important thing here,
Yes.
Anna, is to remember that no two individual circumstances
Are the
alike.
same. Okay.
So go in, have that one-on-one discussion, and you will find out just exactly how much financing you could get based on the type of property that you want to acquire.
Okay.
It could just be 97%, so you might not be self-employed to get the 100,
Yes.
but it could be that you're going to get 97%, which is pretty good.
Okay, so let me just clarify this again.
Yes.
Self-employed will get 100% financing
Up to a certain amount.
up to a certain point.
Right.
So can persons who are employed access 100% financing also?
No.
So what I don't understand this. I say,
Because it's usually
Then
easier
some-
for you to qualify. Remember, self-employed persons, the income fluctuates, so it's a little harder to save
With employed
constantly.
persons too.
No, man, employed person, you can actually say, come the 25th of the month or the 15th of the month, you know what your salary is going to be. You can develop the discipline of taking some out of it and putting aside. The self-employed persons, as we all know, sometimes all 6 weeks, 6 months, you don't get anything. I was actually reading an article this morning in one of the media where it says a gentleman is about to lose his home because he's been waiting on payment from
Sarah.
someone. I'm not sure who,
Yes,
but right,
yes.
for 6 years.
Well,
So Victoria Mutual understands
Yes.
that's a little bit more challenging for you. So we're doing everything we can
To help.
you as a self-employed person. If you're employed, we're still doing a lot. 97% is phenomenal.
Them want 100. Them want 100.
So just do a little saving, man. When you invest in the property fund, the real estate property fund,
Yes.
you would have acquired quickly the deposit that you need. So we're giving you all the
Here or
solutions.
a sell is like an
All
still
the solutions,
100%.
man.
All right, so Alison, we have 2 questions, one from the YouTube chat and one from the Facebook chat. So let me start with the YouTube question first. Does refinancing an existing debt via a new lender impact your credit negatively from a credit assessment standpoint? Hey.
So what impacts credit negatively is how you treat with the credit. So if you were paying that credit facility well, you're paying it on time and you're paying it in full, it should not impact it. So moving one credit from lender A to lender B is not going to impact it because it nets out that you're not taking on additional loan facilities. So remember earlier in the presentation I said there are a couple things that actually go into determining what your credit score is. So the number of credit facilities that you have, so the number of the type of credit facilities. So having 4 credit facilities, credit card, student loan, mortgage, car loan, not so bad. But having 4 credit cards impacts you negatively. And in terms of how much you pay, etc. So in this instance, the first thing that affects your credit, which is the number of facilities that you have, that is not going to change. So you're just moving from institution A to institution B. So let's use the example of a mortgage. Let's say you got the mortgage 10 years ago from another institution that was not Victoria Mutual, and the interest rate was excessively high, and you think that you pay really, really well, and you now approach VM to say, hey, I have this mortgage property, and I want to do a refinance, and you come to us and we crunch your numbers and we take over your mortgage, it's not going to impact you if you were paying the previous facility well, because it's a net effect. The benefit is just that you will end up benefiting from a lower interest rate, which will lead to a lower monthly payment.
So I suspect, though, that this question perhaps came from one of the commandments. If listen attentively, come say,
good student.
So one of the commandments was do not originate a credit inquiry.
Yes.
So I suspect this question might have come from that.
It might have come from that. So if you're existing, you're an existing homeowner and you're trying to refinance a mortgage, naturally we're going to initiate the credit report, but have the institution do it after we've done all the assessments. If it is not a mortgage that you're trying to refinance, just kind of press pause a little bit and just don't trouble it and just wait.
All right. So the other question from Facebook. This viewer is just asking you to repeat the website for the free credit reports, and they were actually not websites; they were just the two credit bureaus.
The two credit bureaus. So it's CRIF, CRIF, CRIF NM, and Credit Info Jamaica.
Credit Info Jamaica.
So a quick Google search on the website.
All right, CRIF, CRIF, and Credit Info Jamaica. So, listen, people in Jamaica still have 4 credit cards. Nobody answered that.
Anna,
nobody answered that at all.
We do, and we actually have persons that do not need to have 4 and 3 credit cards, because what they don't realize is that yes, you got the credit card because you pay well or your salary goes to the institution, and in most of these instances they would have approached you.
Yes.
If you do not need it,
don't
take it out. Don't accept it, because you have it there, you're not using it, but on your credit report it is saying you have all these facilities. The only reason to have the facility is with the intention to use it.
Yes.
So it means at any point in time you're a swipe away from amassing X amount of debt.
All right, so as we wrap up, let me ask you 2 questions. The first question is, suppose somebody says, all right, I have these 4 credit cards and they provide me a good source of credit. Can I use them to pay my deposit?
No. You cannot use them to pay your deposit, and let me tell you why, Anna, because I know she's good.
No, man.
Boy, Anna, you're making me feel so wicked today.
No, sir, you got to deal with strong Alison.
No, I'm giving you good advice. Let me tell you why. So remember earlier I spoke about your DSR, your debt service ratio.
Right.
So let me give you a simple example, very simplistic. If you earn $1,000 per month, your debt service ratio is the percentage of that income that we're saying you can allocate towards credit facilities, total credit facilities. Let's say it's 45%, right? So it means of your total income, your gross income of $1,000 per month, you can have loan facilities of $450.
Right.
If you already have a car loan for $50,
yes,
and you have a student loan, or student loan is $50, and you have a car loan for $100, it means then you have $300 left that you can put towards a mortgage. You have no other debt, no other loan.
Yes.
If you now have the credit card for $1 million or 1.5, and you decide that your solution to pay the deposit is to swipe the credit card for $1 million, guess what happened now?
Your debt servicing
your
ratio.
Debt service ratio is greater reduced. Right. It's reduced. The amount that is available. The available portion of it is reduced. Because now out of that $300 that we had earmarked for a mortgage payment, we know when we run your credit report, we're going to see that you have this massive debt of $1 million on your credit card, and we're going to calculate a percentage of that towards your monthly payment, because you must pay back. It's not your money, it's the bank money. And that is going to impact your debt service ratio.
Okay.
So you would have probably taken out $150 out of the $300 that was left. So in your quest to pay the deposit, you actually shoot yourself in the foot because you reduced the amount that you could get for the mortgage, so we can't lend you the loan again.
All right, so in simple terms, ladies and gentlemen, invest to create that additional wealth to purchase a home. That is the best way. That is the most, that is the more financially prudent way of purchasing a home. We know that everybody tries to find creative ways, but sometimes those creative ways end up costing you more in the long run. Alison, what would be your final word for our viewers in terms of home ownership or property acquisition?
It is possible with proper financial planning, and it is the best surefire way to create wealth. And do not think that it is something that is unattainable. speak to an expert, get it demystified, and get on your path to home ownership because it can be done.
All right, and that is the note on which we end our presentation on property acquisition and home ownership. Speak with an expert, you know, like Alison, you know, call her at VM Property Services. She's a realtor and a member of the Realtors Association of Jamaica. She can tell you the real things them. Don't use your credit card to pay that deposit, you know. Do it the financially prudent way, the way that you learned it on Wealth Summit. If you want that additional income quickly, learn to invest. Explore investment opportunities. Inside Wealth Summit for February 2022, it's a new year and it brings new opportunities. Alison, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna talk to our host again. We're gonna talk to our host, Alison. Thanks again.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
great.
you.
We heard from Alfred Dawes, Dr. Alfred Dawes, just before Alison Morgan of VM. He spoke about protecting your health. You know, and health, not only your physical health, but I may encourage you to protect your mental health. All right, before Alfred Dawes, we heard from Javette Nixon of Point Global Marketing. He spoke about doing that pitch as entrepreneurs. How do you communicate the value that you offer to an investor, to a customer? We learned from Kalila Reynolds the 3 keys to maintaining or developing wealth. 1, real estate. 2, entrepreneurship. 3, the stock market investing. And of course, that includes bonds. And before that, State Minister Marcia Smith, she gave us some practical tips on how we should organize our lives. These are like the foundation of the quest to create wealth. 1, ensure that your legal documents are correct and in good standing. 2, put the father's name on your child's birth certificate. 3, get enumerated. 4, ensure that you have government issued IDs. These are all practical steps and we can consider them the building blocks to your quest for creating wealth. All important topics covered by our presenters today. Wealth Summit always bring the good things. You know, our quest is improving your financial literacy. And a financially literate citizen is a wealthy citizen, right? All you need to do is not only learn, as Dr. Dawes said, but apply. Not only will it, but do it. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Wealth Summit, the first one for 2022. I'm your host, Anna Smith, on behalf of the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, specifically the communications team. Thank you so much for joining us for this, the first summit for 2022. Thank you to our viewers, for those persons who participated on social media, who answered the questions on the Mentimeter, to the persons who watched on Zoom via the ministry's Facebook page, to the persons who watched via the Jamaica Information Services Facebook page and YouTube channels. Thank you so much for joining us. Spread the knowledge, spread the wealth. You can also follow up with the Wealth Summit on YouTube. Of course, the recordings will be there. Just search Ministry of Finance Wealth Summit. You will see where we started in 2021, where we spoke about financial inclusion. In October, we went to digital financial inclusion, and this year, we're talking about the opportunities that are presenting themselves in 2022. It's, hashtag MOFPS Wealth Summit 2022, MOFPS Wealth Summit. Follow the ministry on Twitter at MOFPS Jamaica and on Instagram, MOFPS Jamaica. The website, www.mofps.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I am your host, Anna Smith. It's been my pleasure to have hosted you for another wealthy edition of Wealth Summit. As I take my leave, may I encourage you, seek knowledge, seek health. You will get wealth. Thank you, and take care until we meet again.